All right. Hello. Everyone's giving me thumbs up to start the show. I was trying to get my screen set up. Sorry about that, guys.
It's
How's
okay.
everyone doing?
Apparently,
sorry,
only
what?
me and Foreman were giving thumbs up. Everyone else is like looking at their phones. Grim's like behind his mic.
I was starting to feel a little silly, man. I looked like I don't know what was happening. I started almost dancing, but we got it going.
Yeah, sorry. I was trying to get the socials up, get the Xbox chat up and stuff like that so we can speak with you guys, the community. If you guys don't know, this is Xbox Talks. We are here for you guys, the community. So please come up and ask questions in the chat over here. Yeah, just wherever you guys want to do, participate. This is your show as much as ours. Let's introduce the hosts here today. We have myself, Corkinstein. We have Jay Foreman.
Aloha? I forget what. Never mind. You have to go back to last week's show. I tried.
It was aloha.
All right. Yeah.
You'll get it. We have Ivan Grimprovise.
How's it going, everyone?
We have Mikey J. Raymond.
Hello.
And we have Anthony Mochaworm.
There's a lot of pressure on this now. I don't know. Ahoy.
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 All right.
There we go.
Well, awesome, guys. Another week down. What have you guys all been playing? I know there's a lot of stuff that came out. Foreman and I were doing Diablo 4. There's a new Overwatch event that came out. Jedi Survivor. Redfall. There's just tons and tons of stuff to play right now. What have you guys been playing?
Who's going?
Whoever wants to go first. No rush.
Somebody just jump in there.
No pressure.
All right. I actually completely abandoned all of Xbox games for the moment. I've been hardcore playing DayZ. Yeah.
That's a name I haven't heard in a long time.
Yeah, I've been playing the absolute hell out of DayZ. Like 40 hours.
Wow. So what brought you back in? Like, what got you?
I really wanted a survival game with friends, but I wanted guns and I wanted the PvP aspect. And I tried to get my friend into it, and he played it with me for a little bit. And then I found this group of people, and we just kind of took off running. I play in a community server, so there's some modded stuff going on, higher drop rates and such. And there's a lot of PvP. And I'm loving it. Like I needed that again. And my fallback used to be Tarkov. But my buddy really dislikes Tarkov, so the game I was trying to pick, and that's what we fell on, DayZ. But now I'm kind of playing it without him.
Hey, I think that's awesome. I love to go back to old games like that. So that's cool, man.
Yeah, it's gotten a lot of updates. Because the last time I played 3 hours of the standalone in 2017. It said, and now I have over 40 hours. So. It's been a lot of fun, and now I'm probably going to play on an Xbox too because I think it's on Game Pass.
It is.
It is. Yeah, it is definitely.
Yeah, it's been on there for a while. I think I played like 2 years ago, and like my buddy was like, "Oh yeah, DayZ, greatest game ever. Let's play." And I was like, "All right, I'll give it a shot." And I think like within like my first 30 minutes, I drank some like swamp water and got poisoned and died. So I was just like, "All right," and I am done.
Yep.
I was like,
You need Tetris and pills.
Yeah.
The fact that I know that tells you I'm playing too much.
Yeah, because I was like running around. I'm like, my health is lower. He's like, just run to me. But he's like all the way on the other side of the map. And I was like, I don't know what I'm doing. Where are you at? And yeah, it was like 30 minutes of just absolute chaos. And I was like, I think I'll put a pin in this one for now. But you're liking it?
Oh, yeah. It was. I was falling asleep thinking of things I could do on my next run.
That's how you know a game has you. Like when you're at work or your mind just starts drifting and you're like, I can't wait to get back to that. And I'm that way with Diablo, which I'll get into in a little bit here.
Yeah, actually, you want to go next then, Jake? Because we actually played some Diablo this last week.
Oh, hold on. Does Mikey have a little more there that he?
I forgot. I did play some Diablo too. We'll talk about it together then, I guess.
Okay.
Yeah, that's awesome. So I don't even really know how to start this. Yeah, we did play some Diablo. I had a great time with it. I played with my daughter. We got to level 20, and this was our second time through because we leveled in the previous beta too, and we kept trying that world boss. That world boss was getting us. I have a confession.
So brutal.
Yeah, her and I stayed up till 2 a.m. The night before. That was the spawn time here in Eastern time anyway, and We were dragging, my eyes were heavy, and we got there, and she kind of talked me into it, and then I talked her into it. But anyways, we got there and we did the fight, and about halfway through the fight, I realized that I had not switched from tier 2 to tier 1 world level. So basically, we stayed up for nothing, and I still haven't told her that that's what happened. So I hope she doesn't listen back to this, just because yeah, that was my bad. So it came down to one final run, basically. The next morning, we hooked up with Kevin here, and Kevin, what happened? I don't know, because we were all good to go. We were sitting there and ready to spawn, and here comes Kevin, and Kevin's running in, and he's level 19, man. I'm like, what is this madman doing? You have to be level 20 to get the achievement. There are 5 minutes until the boss is ready to spawn. And I'm just like, Kevin, run north. And like, get up there as fast as you can, and you got to start mashing mobs because you need to be level 20 to hit this. And I don't know what happened, man, but I got to tell you, on our side, I was like, I think we might have to leave him behind. I don't think he's going to make it. It didn't look good. And then you came running in at the end. You got to level 20. How did you do it?
So I wasn't too far off. There was actually, I don't know if they upped the spawn rate, but that event that was right there next to Asheva, just kept popping, like back to back to back. So I just kept hitting that up and just leveling up like crazy. And it didn't hurt that I had other people coming in that saw it going on. So they were just helping me wipe the mobs, and I was just getting the completion over and over and over and over again. So I went from like 19 to 20 in like 4 minutes. And then that's when I just barely ran in, and then the event started, I'm not saying we got it because of me, but I'm saying we got it because of me.
That's where it gets interesting too. The boss fight was not clean. We came down to it was within the last minute, maybe the last 2 minutes, and if Kevin wasn't there, we may have not done it. So thankfully, we all got out of there. We got the achievement, and it really had a blast with it. I saw the potential for the PvE, the 10, 12 player fights where it's a real strategic battle, and very MMO like, very Warcraft like, and something that we haven't in some of the shooters like Destiny and that kind of thing, but not in this kind of scale and this kind of setting before on console. So I'm so primo excited for this game.
Can you just explain for people like me who don't know this? I was following you guys on Discord, and I was seeing the messages going back and forth about getting this money. So firstly, why was that the last possible attempt that you could do? And my second question is, do these bosses only spawn at certain times of day? Do you have to? They did that. That's my questions really. I was following what you were doing. It was really exciting. I was like, oh my god! And then you did it, and it was like, it was incredible. But I didn't understand the mechanics of it.
Yeah, go for it.
Yeah. So the first part is, this was the Server Slam weekend, and they were giving away a special mount trophy that you can hang on your mount for defeating the world boss.
So you did all of that. You did all of that for something you can hang on your horse.
Yeah,
pretty much.
Probably never use it either. It's kind of ugly, man.
Incredible.
It's like a giant horn or something like that. Yeah, it's not the prettiest, but I had to have it. That FOMO just got me. But yeah, so it was that, and that was your only time they had the world boss spawning every 3 hours. And then the last time to do it was at 9 a.m. because that's when the Server Slam thing was about to end. Or did it go a little bit longer? I wasn't entirely sure, but they capped the world boss at 9 a.m. So for like probably about a good like 36 hours, every 3 hours there was a world boss.
And if you didn't do that, this is an item that you're not going to be able to get again in the future.
So you can do it in the game, but this is the last time you would be able to get that special trophy.
Got you. Right.
So yeah, it was kind of like a once in a lifetime, not once in a lifetime, but like kind of a once in a time that you could actually get that trophy. So if somebody sees it and knows what it is, it's kind of like a little bit of respect,
So if you're a collector, this is a game that's really going to get you with events and stuff like this. I've already seen a new promotion where it's support a Twitch streamer. Well, all you have to do is find a Twitch streamer that's streaming Diablo and buy 2 subscriptions on their channel, and you can redeem that for some other cosmetic in the game. So Blizzard knows their target audience, and people that play Diablo, I think, probably have personalities that kind of lend themselves to wanting to get every single possible thing they possibly can. So you will see people jumping through hoops, and if they release like super limited things, They had like trading cards for Warcraft where you could get an item back in the day, something similar to that. You can expect just exorbitant prices, and it's just gonna be crazy. So, but the bottom line here is that it's just a lot of fun.
Yeah, that's what kind of Kevin mentioned it. That's what kind of turned me off Destiny. In the end, like I grinded it for 3 years over 1 and 2, and it's like in the end it was just too much to keep up with these events, these one-off events and they changed them so much, and then they'd sunset the things you did anyway, or you achieved anyway. And it just turned me off in the end.
Yeah, maybe
Mikey.
Yeah.
Oh, go ahead.
No, not Mikey.
No, sorry, go ahead.
We didn't even get Mikey's. What happened with Mikey?
Yeah, what happened? I mean, we were all doing it. I'm surprised we didn't see you with the world boss with us.
That's because I didn't know about the fact you had to be level 20.
Mm.
And me and my wife did it at level 13 at World Tier 2, so that's all I'm going to say.
It's no joke. Like you guys think, one world tier difference. No, I had probably, when I did it at World Tour Tour, we had probably like 10, 12 people there or something like that, ridiculous. And we barely even got to the first little notch of the world boss. That's how insanely difficult it was at World Tier 2.
I had
we did get it halfway. I will say that.
There you go. Oh, at level 13, that's crazy. We had one good run on Tier 2 where I would say we maybe got it to a third, and it was a really excellent group. But I also had another group. It felt like Overwatch where, I got it to another group, and man, we got it down to like maybe 70%. So the only
does it scale? Does it scale like so? Mikey and his wife did it, and would it be less difficult for them because there was 2 of them in?
I don't believe it scales.
The boss itself. The reason it was so hard this beta is because the cap is level 20 instead of level 25, and the boss stayed at level 25.
Yeah, it's a level 25.
World bosses, they don't scale with the level. So the rest of the game will scale with you. So every time you enter a new level or a new part of the map, that will automatically scale to your level. So if you're 13, the new zone you jump into will be level 13.
I was thinking more about the number of players, because Jay just said you had 12 players. Does it scale up because there's more people attacking the boss?
No, I think the bosses are consistent, and one of the things they've said too is that the final boss in this game is going to be a genuine challenge. They don't expect everyone to be able to beat it, maybe at all at first. Blizzard with Warcraft is famous for releasing bosses really, really, really hard and then softening them up after a while, just to give you that real, that hero check there for the really skilled players when the game first launches. So I'm expecting some really tough fights, and it's going to take a lot of, like I said, skill plays and really fine gear tuning. All those builds that you can do, people will be experimenting and trying to mash it all together to get just that the top DPS. The only thing I'm really missing is I want meters in this game. I want to see what's happening. Am I doing solid damage? How's that playing out compared to everybody else? And then you can find out where your weaknesses are and try to improve there. But anyways, I could go on and on, but let's just say I had a great time with Diablo 4, and it sounds like you guys did too, except for Mikey, man. That's kind of a bummer.
Well, I had a personal situation going on, so we didn't really have a ton of time.
That's true too. And you know what? Like I said, nobody's gonna even use the thing. After the first week, you're gonna have so much cool stuff and different trinkets. Nobody's gonna remember it anyway. So, but it was a fun time.
To level us up, at one point, I was actually playing on both controllers after my wife fell asleep at night, and I was just I made her run we both were sorcerers, and I just made her run the same build, and I was just hitting the same buttons at the same time. So
nice.
That's kind of fun. I would like to see that.
Grim or Moko, who wants to go next? We're still talking about what we played last week. What did you guys jump into?
We got Diablo'd.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I can understand. Diablo is like that, so I totally get it. But for me, I've been playing Zelda ever since that came out. Because I'm a fan, so once that came out, I've been waiting for. Yeah, I've been waiting for that for a long time, and it's very rare that games exceed my expectations. I kind of feel like I sort of tone it down a bit, but I still can't believe some of the things that have happened. I mean, I'm basically done with it. I finished it on Saturday. Now I have 40 or so left of shrines to do. I've just been at it. And every time I play it, I'm just like, wow, I can't believe this is going on right now. And I don't want to spoil anything. It's just go and explore,
in what way? In what way? You mean graphically, gameplay?
Well, not so much graphically. Well, it's interesting because graphically and gameplay is very similar to Breath of the Wild, but they switched to the Lunchbox engine, which is what Splatoon 3 and Switch Sports is using. So it's not even Breath of the Wild's engine anymore. So I thought that was strange. But it feels just like it. And what impresses me is the new tools that you have, which is like you can attach things now when you move it. You also have a recall to where you can make something go back in time, and you can just build. So it's like the stuff you could build. I mean, I've seen some crazy things on the internet. You know?
That's why I'm laughing. That's why I'm totally laughing right now, because I think you probably know what I'm thinking of, and I probably know what you're thinking of.
Exactly.
I think we all know what 5 males are thinking of.
Right.
Yeah, there's a lot of creative ways you can take down enemies thanks to the building,
You can use
and
slides.
I'm sure Nintendo intended it. You know? But yeah, it's just if you have like a problem-solving brain, there's so many ways you can go about a challenge with these new runes, and it's interesting that just such a minor tweak opens up the game in such a big way. Where Breath of the Wild had like sort of a formula that you felt like you kind of figured out after a while, this one has a totally new formula to it. And watching people play like shrines that I did, I'm like, I didn't think of doing it that way. I kind of make like recall elevators, as I like to call them, where I just throw an item up in the air as high as I can, and then when it falls, I jump on it, do the recall, and then it just flies back up in the air when he's standing on it. But I see other people actually solve it the right way, so that's great.
Solve it. There's no right way. I think I just have to say that it feels really weird having Zelda footage up right now on an Xbox podcast, but I think this game kind of transcends all consoles, and everybody, you know, if you're not playing it, you're definitely aware of it. I've watched some streams, and it does look like a lot of fun. I think the best thing that you just said was that, you know, you solved it one way, and then you watch somebody else solve it a different way, and you're just like, oh, that's kind of cool, and that's really fun. That's something that you don't get in a lot of games, honestly.
Yeah, and I was a little worried because, sorry, the last thing I was going to say is I was a little worried because the game is priced $70, you know, and I'm used to the trend that every $70 game has been the worst. You know what I mean? Like, it's been broken on release or has microtransactions. I'm happy to find a $70 game that's just fully functional, and there it is. Like, it was just a complete game for once, and I'm looking forward to the next year now because it's like it's been a rough one.
But you know what? Of all the companies that I would expect Nintendo to deliver on a AAA title.
Yeah.
You know, they've just got that seal of quality, haven't they? That people expect.
So how's the performance on it? Because I mean, I know DFW, like, or DF, Digital Foundry, like, it seemed, I remember seeing a lot of people that were like, oh, DF is kind of like, they were like justifying the performance issues, saying, oh, the slowdowns remind us of like an old console kind of thing.
Yeah.
How bad is really the performance? Because like, look at kind of the exaggeration a lot of people did with, you know, some games and stuff like that. Most recently, Redfall, about how they, you know, it was buggy and stuff like that. But some people are like, this is the most unplayable thing. It doesn't even load for me. And it's like, other people are like, no, it loads. It's just buggy. You know, how bad is the real performance issues on it?
I think that's probably why they switched to engines, to be honest with you, because like running around the field and like going into the Lost Woods, because I remember the Lost Woods in Breath of the Wild was like awful. It was like that was the worst place to be. That was like the benchmark test. That ran fine. I did run into some issues with frame rate, like when I built a really long bridge using like 6 trees, or like anything that had more than like 6 parts would just tank it. And there was like 1 or 2 boss fights that got a little sketchy, but it wasn't like unplayable. It was just like, oh boy, I'm like probably sitting at 20, 15 frames right now, because the game only runs at 30. So, you know, it has its moments, but I would say it was more consistent than Breath of the Wild, and only certain things like triggered it. Like if I jumped from a high point like a tower and dove straight into the depths with no break, just holding the dive button, the game will just freeze to load up the depths, and then there you go. But that only if you just straight shoot it. Like if you sort of stop in between, like use a glider out of like fear, you wouldn't get it. But I had a suit that like took away fall damage, so I'm just going full blow, like, you know, let's go, and then all of a sudden the game would just stop. I'm like, oh, I guess I can't do that.
That's fair. I mean, kind of like was Breath of the Wild wasn't really that bad, but I do remember it had a little bit of performance issues because there's some people that were going just absolutely crazy with it. But okay, that's good to know. Like I see a lot of people played it up like, oh, it's 20, you know, constantly 20 frames per second, but I haven't played it, so I didn't know. So it's good to hear it's not really bad. It's only when you really try and go outside the box that you really see the engine struggle.
Yeah, so for the most part, I didn't feel like hindered. Even in one of the boss fights when it like started acting up, I was still pretty well in control of the game. Like I was still able to hit the enemy. I didn't really get like, oh, I lost because of frame rate issues or anything like that. It was just noticeable. And you know, traversal of the actual game never had a problem, unless, like I said, that crazy drop stuff. You know, where I'm dropping from the sky all the way to the depths, no break, because the depths is like a huge world in itself. It's like Hyrule but underground, so it's a lot to load up.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
All right.
There's a lot going on in Hyrule right now, so I can't believe, like even after you beat it, I'm sure it's just a game that you can play and play and play and just look for different things to do, different ways to solve puzzles. Like you said, it's probably a game that you want to replay and take a look at things. And it's a good streaming game. It is for sure. I've been watching some people play, and I didn't pull the trigger on it just because so much on my plate and all that stuff. But I was tempted by the 2 for $100 deal because I want to get Advance Wars as well. If you're not familiar, Nintendo offers a pretty wide selection of games where you can get them for $50 each, and Tears is one of those games. So chance to save a little money that way if you're shopping on your Switch. So let's see. Anthony, did we talk to Anthony?
Yeah.
Well, I'll give you a brief. I tried Redfall this week. I went in after everything that I'd read, and I'm having a good time with it. I think I'm not
liar.
No,
filthy lies.
Here comes the contrarian.
Listen, I've gone in solo. I've not played any PvP. I've just gone in solo. All I've done is the intro. I've got the fire station. I've gone out on my first expedition, and it's pretty fun. It seems okay. I mean, it's not incredible. It's nothing mind blowing, but yeah, I mean, the criticism that I read and that I heard and that I went through on the, we moderate the sub, obviously, the amount of stuff that I dealt with that week and that day, I thought was a bit overblown from what I've played myself. And then the second game, we had an AMA on the sub by a company called Coco Cucumber, and they piqued my interest about their game Ravenlock. So I played that this week, and it's really, really good. I can really recommend it if you've not played it. It's a beautiful game. It's like super easy. It's about probably a 4-hour completion for the 1000G. It's not too difficult. It's just a really cool little indie game. Superb game. So I can highly recommend.
Yeah, they got picked up.
Go on, Mikey.
Uh-oh.
You reminded me of another indie game I was playing, Dismantle.
I don't know that one.
Neither.
I didn't either. I came across it on sale for like $10. It's a $25 title. And I would pay $25 for it. You spawn in, it's a top-down view, kind of like Diablo. You're a character, you can play it co-op, couch co-op. I'm not sure about online co-op, but the whole premise is that you walk around, you break down the world, and it's a zombie survival horror game. So you can break down fences, walls when you upgrade your tools. When you get new tools, you can break down like washing machines. You can break down cars eventually. You get weapons, and you just survive and progress through this world. And I'm 6 hours in. I started like 2 weeks ago. I forgot about this, and I've unlocked an eighth of the map.
Is this a Game Pass game?
No.
Oh, okay.
It's just a terrific game, though. It's got like a 4.7 review. And I was just like, what is this? And then it just hit that collection itch that I get. And you just sit there and you'll break down an entire, because now I can break down wooden walls, and I just broke down a whole house just because I needed to clean it up.
Well, Ravenlock for me was a perfect sort of example of, so the developer came to us via the sub. We did the AMA. They did a really good AMA as well. It was a well received one. A lot of questions. They were really cool. They gave away a couple of copies of the game in the thread, and it just piqued my interest. But then also, obviously, it's on Game Pass. It's released on Game Pass, and it's just one of those games that I probably wouldn't have downloaded. I would have passed by. But the developers were super cool. It's on Game Pass. It's not costing me anything, and it's just really good. It's just a great little game for anybody who's into that kind of genre.
Yeah, and the reason I brought up Dismantle is because so many games like that go under the radar because they're unseen. And it's a shame because I've never heard of Dismantle. None of you guys ever had, and we probably wouldn't have heard of Ravenlock if it wasn't on Game Pass. And that was true before Game Pass. One of the criticisms that I've heard of Game Pass is that it only highlights the games that are on the service, and then other games are drowned out. Other games were drowned out before.
Right, and there are.
I mean, everybody just bought Battlefield, they bought Call of Duty, they bought EA Sports games, or they bought the niche that they were into.
And not every Game Pass game is a huge success. A lot of them still don't go anywhere. You know, they're just kind of on there, and they're like, there's games on there that I look at and I've probably seen 100 times, and I never remember them because they're just kind of there.
Like you and me might have never played Forager,
for sure,
and it was one of our favorite games at the time.
Yeah,
it's just, you know, Game Pass does a great job of giving games a chance that never otherwise would have.
Yeah,
people say it's the other way around. It's not. So I just wanted to say that because Dismantle is one of my favorite games that I've played this year, to be honest, for a $25 title, and it's nobody will ever hear of it. And
it's weird how that works, right? And that's one of the things that one of my favorite parts about working with these communities is that sometimes we can help a game like Ravenlock, and, you know, where I'm not saying we're going to make a game an overnight success, but I hope that we help get some exposure for them and bring them out to the community, and maybe somebody sees it and then they tell somebody else. You know, that's how this works, and that's the kind of battle these indie games have. You know, it's really hard for them when they don't have big marketing budgets. You know, they've crafted this game and they can basically drop on the store, and then all of a sudden they're like, man, how do we tell anybody about this game? And when you're scrolling through the new page on the store, I'm sure that happens to everyone. There's so much there, and a lot of stuff looks similar. You don't know what's really solid and what's not. You're going by user reviews, and that's a real uphill battle for these developers. So, you know, if you guys find something like that, I think that's awesome. Plug it here on the show, talk about it, and that's how it starts. Now you got me interested. I pulled up some gameplay while you were talking about it. I'm like, that kind of looks like something I might enjoy. I would have never heard about it without that, you know?
Yeah. No, it's definitely cool. I think there was a developer recently, like a while back, that came out and was like, I can't remember who it was. Help me if anybody's listening in the chat, or if you guys know. I can't remember, but he kind of not really dogged Game Pass, but he was just kind of like saying, oh, well, you know, our sales could have been better or something like that.
The I Am Fish developer, I think.
It was last week. It was long ago. I can't remember the game either.
Yeah, and then Jez highlighted another developer that came out and was like, no, it's actually really great. You know, like, this is an actually awesome, you know, Game Pass is great kind of thing.
Yeah.
I remember the I Am Fish developer coming out against it, but that wasn't last week.
Well, I thought that was back. I thought that was, I think that was the Series S bottleneck one. I don't know. They said something.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, maybe
along those lines.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
But
I'm confusing developers.
The funny thing about that was, like, you know, your game is I Am Fish. Who are you to speak on what's really pixel pushing here? You know, if you were something from somebody AAA or something, I guess it would have held more weight. But anyways.
Well, keep your eye out for an AMA coming up soon, because I'm currently in discussion with someone who's released on Game Pass who is willing to do an AMA about Game Pass. It's currently being set up, but won't go any further.
Some behind the scenes stuff from Anthony. He's got a hot lane.
It's a developer who defended Game Pass on the sub, and I reached out to them and said,
that's right.
People really want to hear about this. People want to know how Game Pass works.
Yeah, come say a bunch of controversial stuff.
Well, yeah. So there's a lot of NDAs in there. So, but they've agreed in principle to come and do an AMA. So
awesome.
That's going to be.
That's good, and we'll make it welcoming for him. I'm just joking around, of course. So,
real quick, Moko.
Yeah.
So you were talking about Redfall. You said so.
I feel
you
like
said it was a fun game, though, right?
What I'm saying is, I mean, I've only spent a few hours on it, and yeah, it was cool. It was like, you know.
All right, there we go. We could go to the news now. Redfall's a fun game from Moko.
It was all right. Like, there was nothing,
post that on the sub.
What I mean was, I didn't have any crazy glitches. Frame rate drops were nothing crazy.
How do you drop from 30?
But what I have noticed recently is that when I've been playing 30 FPS games, some of them I do get a bit of motion sickness, and I don't know what causes it with certain games. Redfall, it was doing that to me a little bit. I was getting a little bit quick after I played it for an hour or so. I was feeling a bit queasy, and I turned it off. I don't know what causes that in certain games that I play.
I was having fun, but I was ready to throw up.
Like a good amusement.
I love
it. I believe it's to do with field of view.
Motion blur.
Yeah, motion blur, field of view.
If you turn off motion blur, it should be a little bit better for you.
There was a developer that fixed it by putting a dot in the center of the screen. one time I read this game was causing huge motion sickness, and they put a little dot in the middle of the screen that you focused on when you moved, and it got rid of the whole thing. So, but I don't know.
There are some games I can play at 30. Shadow
Mm-hmm.
of the Tomb Raider, for example, or the first Tomb Raider when it came out was 30 FPS, and I could do it. I can't do first-person shooters, and I don't think anybody should have to ever.
No.
Yeah, motion. You know, the more motion, the smoother you want it. It doesn't matter if you're doing a turn-based game or something like that, but that I think that's where it's more impactful. So
I'll feedback again. I'll carry on. I'll feedback.
That's good.
Feedback next week.
I'm sure we could go hit the news now. Jay, did you want to take us in on some of the news?
Well, yeah. I mean, we have a lot of ABK stuff to talk about, and that's probably really is the big news of the week. But I thought I'd maybe start with some lighter stuff and stuff a little more fun and maybe not really all that much fun actually. But let's talk about Overwatch 2 a little bit, because I know that we have some people that are still fans up here, and this is kind of something that felt like it was coming, and they finally announced it, and it still was met with a lot of backlash, wasn't it? And I haven't even said what it is, but Kevin, are you versed in this? Do you want to kind of give us a little tour of what happened?
Yeah, so it looks like the PvE portion, the campaign, I guess, of Overwatch 2 was gutted from the Overwatch 2, I guess, pipeline, I guess their development timeline. They just realized it wasn't going to work. I mean, what was his name? I can't believe it. John? Is it John Kaplinik? I can't remember.
Jason Kepler. I don't know. There's
Kepler.
a lot of Blizzard people, and I get them all mixed up sometimes. But I think that's right.
Yeah, I know it's Jay, and then Kepler. Yeah, he came out. I think he's the director, the creative director for it. He came out and he was saying that it just wasn't feasible as they kept going more and more and more, because it got so much backlash. And he even said, like, the narrative was written that single player was done with Overwatch 2, like, and that's what people were saying, like, there's going to be no single player content. And so he kind of came out and was like, well, that's not entirely true. We still have hero missions with cinematics that are going to tell the story of Overwatch 2 in a certain way. We're just not going to go down the single player route of, with specs, like they were going to make it kind of like a mini RPG in a sense, where you have a spec tree that you can do like put stuff into it and kind of build your character, and that got wiped. But the hero missions are still there. But yeah, it just makes sense. So basically they built the foundation as like a PvP MMO style game, and when you build that like that, it's hard to try and also fit PvE style stuff in it.
But isn't the PvE Overwatch 2? I mean, take that away and it's Overwatch 1, right?
Well, there was a couple fundamental changes. They switched from 6-on-6 to 5v5. The monetization system switched, and a lot of people are saying, well, it was just an excuse to change the monetization system. And no, gamers, that's not what happened. We've all been protesting about loot boxes for ages. That was starting to get limited in certain markets, and Blizzard said, you know what? If you don't want loot boxes, we're reworking it, and you've got battle passes. That's how all these developers are going now. So I'm not trying to excuse, there's no reason to call it Overwatch 2. That's not what I'm saying here, but the kind of nefarious, underhanded, like, oh, this was just Blizzard trying to be greedy. They did what gamers were asking for, as far as that front goes. Go ahead, yeah.
You two are huge Overwatch fans. I loved Overwatch, the first one, but you two are still big Overwatch fans. You play consistently. But if you sort of step back, is everything you said then not? That's a game update, right?
Yes,
that's an update, not a new title.
It's not a sequel, right?
And I know
I would say, yeah.
I know it's free to play now.
Well, can I draw a parallel real quick to Heroes of the Storm, another favorite Blizzard game of mine? It never really took off, but first of all, they did a complete monetization change too. They used to have paid skins, and they switched to a loot box system. They didn't call it Heroes of the Storm 2. I think they called the game version 2.0, but it wasn't this big relaunch. They didn't, try to, make it like it was going to be a brand new, different thing with different content. They just were like, hey, this is kind of a new way to go about it. What interests me about that, though, is the heroes in that game, including characters like Junkrat, these characters that we know from Overwatch, they did have talent trees. You could develop them in different ways to give them different strengths and weaknesses. And I was like, well, man, that would be cool if they could bring that into Overwatch to let you build your characters out into, little tweaks in different ways in the multiplayer. Now, I know that's a nightmare to balance, but they've shown they can do it in Heroes. So when they scrapped the PvE, that just completely took that off the table to me, because if they can't get it to work in PvE, PvP's just out of this world.
I didn't catch why. I mean, if PvE's built and released, and that's like, why have they scrapped it? What's the problem?
Well,
so
this is their.
Oh, go ahead.
I was going to quote them.
Yeah, if you can, please.
Things rarely go as planned in game development. We struggled to find our footing with the hero mission experience early on. Scope grew. We were trying to do too many things at once, and we lost focus. The team built some really great things, including hero talents, new enemy units, and early versions of missions, but we were never able to bring together all the elements needed to ship a polished, cohesive experience. And that's
had it not already shipped.
I mean, sad trombone. You're gonna have to show me how to work those. Thank you.
For me, one of the other things was that this was going to be their true realization of what the original vision of Project Titan was.
Yeah,
and it's just they failed to deliver on a lot of what they said they wanted to do with Overwatch again and again. At first they just said, well, we're just going to ship the multiplayer component and single player will come later. And I have a feeling then they knew they weren't going to do it. Overwatch 2, you said it yourself, it's a game update. There was really no point in making Overwatch 2, especially now that they've pulled one of the biggest components. Like, they'll still have some of the hero stuff or whatever, but the biggest experience that people were kind of looking forward to, and I remember some comments saying like, oh, I look forward to this coming out. It's gone now. So your true realization, as much as you wanted to do that, you didn't fulfill it. You let people down, in my opinion.
Even before this, I think it was Video Game Donkey, but he did a video about Overwatch 2, and he called it Overwatch 2 TOO. Like, it was already kind of the same thing, and that was before they scrapped the PvE. And it's just it is so true, And if you go, it's just kind of people's impression of this game.
Yeah.
So I think what they've done is tarnished what was a fine brand. They could have done this without all this ill will. They could have never gone with a 2. Been like, hey, we're kind of updating Overwatch. We have a great foundation. A lot of people still enjoy playing the multiplayer. We're gonna make some tweaks, and I don't think this seems like it was almost like a PR mess up. And maybe the development was bigger, but even so, it could have been conceptualized differently and delivered differently, and where even this walkback wouldn't have felt so significant.
An Overwatch team, they had one of the best PR guys. I can't remember his name. He would come out and do weekly updates, and Reddit would post it, and it would be the top post on Reddit. Jeff Kaplan, I think.
Yeah,
there we go. Yep,
that's who I was talking about. He's the one that also did the announcement that you read. That was him talking about it.
So he's still involved, but I don't know what happened, because they used to be Reddit, for example, just freaking loved them. He was a god to them. He could do no wrong, and he was amazing. And now it's just a complete 180 of what he used to be.
Yeah,
it's really unfortunate.
And he's been with Blizzard a long time. He was involved with World of Warcraft early on. One of the takes I saw on this, it was like, Project Titan's been canceled twice now. And that was kind of I thought about it for a second. I was like, wow, when you think about it, that's really kind of what happened here. And so just kind of bad news if you were really looking forward to something different in Overwatch, because now what it looks like is a steady diet of the same. And like I say, that's a good meal. I enjoy playing Overwatch for what's there. But I'm not looking for any more bells and whistles, apparently, from this point. You're going to get battle passes, events, and just the multiplayer. And at some point, some kind of single player. Do you know more about that, Kevin, before we get off this topic? I not really.
Yeah. So basically with it, there's going to be like these little story missions. They're not going to be, it's basically what they tried to do. And this is the issue, is they tried to make a PvE like base game pretty much on top of a PvP foundation. And that just doesn't work. You're trying to build a second story on something that's only this small, but you want to make it this big. Essentially, if that's the best way to explain it, you're just not going to have a stable foundation. That's why like Halo did the 2 different ones, single player, multiplayer. They're 2 different entire games on how they're played and how they function, but you're not resting them on the same foundation, if that makes sense. So with this it's going to be based off of the multiplayer aspect of it, like they did with, if you've ever done the Halloween thing, the Halloween events where they had the Junker, Junkrat, Rise of the Junkerstein, things like that, something like that, where you're playing, but it's going to be a Mikey's nuclear alarm is going off. Where you have that that linear, streamlined kind of where you go through the map doing little things. So I think that's what they kind of tried to do with the PvP. It shouldn't have been called Overwatch 2. They should have hyped it up as a Overwatch relaunch. But hindsight's 2020. Eventually, you did have this feature that you were dead set when you released, and then a year later, now it's not even a year later, it's like 9 months now.
Do you think they would have scrapped it? Do you think they would have scrapped it if it wasn't a free to play game?
No. To Blizzard's credit, if something's not going right, they just throw it away, and apparently they didn't think this was they weren't having fun with it, that kind of thing. So, like I said, this is the second time they've canceled something related to this particular project. So, Mikey, did you have something to add there? Or
I was going to add. So, building on a multiplayer based game, but I've seen integrated modes. I mean, Halo, you brought up Halo launched as separate experiences, but for years they were launched together. You could launch them from the same menu. Call of Duty, for example, does it where you could get stuff in multiplayer from playing single player. You could get stuff like DMZ, the other multiplayer components, Warzone and single player were all tied in together. So you can even say single player in that case was based off of a multiplayer experience because you could get stuff. And I've heard through the grapevine that that's even going to be more so for 2023, which Activision is, we can say the same company. So it's just, I don't know. If that's one of the reasons, they should have done better planning, because I think people can pull it off, and they've proved it. They've shown that. It's just poor development again. They should have done better. I'm going to hold them accountable.
You also got to think too, Blizzard probably had like Activision, the rest of the company had a severe talent drain. I mean, World of Warcraft was having issues. They had a severe talent drain. So I think it's just, like you said, poor management. I think the way that ABK was going, you got to think morale there probably isn't that high. Unless you're on like a certain special project like Diablo IV right now, where it's just booming. They tried to squash the union that they tried to build. That's a slap in the face to your employees. All the rampant sexual harassment cases, that's a slap to your employees. It's just talent drain and poor management, I think, is kind of just drain the resources that they could have given to Blizzard because you are right. They could make this totally different, separate experience, but without the talent and without the resources, they kind of had to work with what they got, which sucks.
Yeah, and using that to segue, somebody could buy them and fix that.
Okay. Mikey's ready.
Okay, I'll hear you out.
I'm with you.
Who's going to buy them?
I'm taking the lead.
Sony,
no. You know what? I'm just going to go hands off on this. We have several choices on the menu tonight of ABK news. There are a lot of big developments this week. I know one probably stands out. Where do you want to start?
A couple big places, I guess, approved it. I don't know. China and like EU or something.
All of Europe. Oh, except for
yeah.
Everybody looks at Anthony.
Thanks, Brexit.
Just kidding, Anthony.
Hey, we're just keeping our own interests at heart.
Oh, that's all right. You guys are just you like the attention. I know.
Everybody's just like fear mongering in it. Like, so I'm sat here as an Xbox user in the UK. Everybody's like, they're just going to skip you. They're going to like cut you out. You're not going to get Call of Duty.
Well,
you're not gonna
no, there's a lot of.
I just sat there going like, oh man.
Yeah, there's a lot of weird theories and stuff out there. But first, we should probably set this up. And what exactly happened over there in the EU? What did they say? And what did the CMA say right back to them? Right, we had a little clapback that was kind of really wild to see from governmental.
Jesus.
Regulatory. It's like my relatives on Facebook or something. I don't know what was happening, but
CMA they were like the crazy ex-girlfriend that was like, actually, no, I'm better. And it was like this just how they responded to the EU was just so petty. And like I said, it was like this like crazy ex-girlfriend that just wants everybody to know how much better they are than what the next person is, you know, that their significant other seeing. It was just so petty. But anyway, sorry.
They had that already written, you know, that came out within an hour of the EU decision.
Yeah,
so
Europe obviously approved the acquisition with some stipulations, and they're good stipulations for gamers. I think no matter what side of this argument you're on, you have to say, well, that's reasonable. It has to do with guaranteed distribution in a lot of different places, but you know, that made big news. Also, China approved it. I don't know what to make of that, but you know, add one to the list of the list of countries where everybody's on one side, and then I think there's two left that are kind of openly opposed to the deal, and maybe a few others that are undecided, like maybe Canada. I don't know who's still out there. I don't have the menu right in front of me, but it's overwhelming. Menu. Yeah, well, if you're Microsoft lawyers or lobbyists, it might be a menu. But anyways, the overwhelming majority have supported the deal at this point. So this was just another brick, but big news.
What struck me about the EU statement was that they kind of dismissed all of the Sony arguments, which had been a huge deal like a month ago. They were saying that, you know, this wouldn't hurt Sony. I'm not got all the quotes in front of me, but they did something one by one and said, this isn't the case. We don't believe this would be, you know, would detract from Sony's offering, and then with the remedies on top, which was, you know, automatic licensing of the games, it just made sense. It was like a common sense approach, and then just for the CMA to come back within the hour was just crazy. I mean, they'd obviously had those pre-written, pre-signed off. You know, the red tape that goes into this.
You know, you would have to think that was prepared for sure, and it was like a 5-tweet thread that they must have had reasonable expectation, or maybe even knew beforehand what the EU was going to say.
The backlash on Twitter on that thread, if you followed that thread, was basically just people saying how unprofessional this is. It was like you're the CMA. Like, what are you doing writing something like this, or officially, you know, who signed this off? You know, and that was the entire thread on Twitter was basically that. And then the day after in the there was a UK they went to, forgot what the term for it is. It's not a court case anyway, but in the UK, but they went to in front of Parliament to explain a number of different things that they were doing in the CMAs about different aspects. But the UK Parliament basically questioned her mainly on Microsoft. They pushed it really hard, and if you follow any of the Twitter threads on that, they were saying that she was really grilled, and that the judge who was grilling her, the people who were grilling her, the politicians, they seemed to really understand the deal and what the repercussions were. And the questions she was asked, there was a few she was like diverting, she wasn't answering.
Like she wouldn't directly answer the international aspect at all.
Yeah, it's not a good look. It's not a good look. But I mean, they've doubled down now. So for me,
well, they gave her. Yeah, go ahead.
I was saying doubling down with that tweet really boxed it, put them in a corner. If they hadn't done that within an hour, because they're going to look foolish now, right? Because personally, I think they're going to have to change the mind, to change the decision, and they're going to look weak and foolish.
Well, one of the main reasons we haven't brought up is they overestimated the cloud users to begin with.
Bingo.
You know, not only is this, let me just say that, you know, the market is only, as far as I'm aware, it's only defined as like a $300 million market. You know, or that's a lot of money, but that's such a small market compared to the rest of gaming. It's a drop in the bucket. And the CMA came and they're like, well, in a few years, this could be 11 billion. Where are your numbers on that? Because cloud gaming is not big. In fact, one of the largest companies in the world just failed to launch their cloud gaming service because nobody wanted it. Nobody wanted to play Google Stadia. Like, nobody wanted to do it. And now you're coming out and going, well, this is going to take off. You know, this is really going to blow up. You have no proof that it will. And now you're also overestimating the number of users, at least according to the EU. You know, they came out and said, well, you can't just count every Game Pass member as a cloud user, because I'm one of the people that has come out and objected to cloud. I don't like cloud. And I've said it a number of times in this show. I don't enjoy it. It's not a good experience for me. And especially when it comes to Activision games, there is no way in heck I would go on Call of Duty and go, all right, try to drop a couple 40 bombs on the cloud. Said no one ever.
In relation to what you just said, the day after, Jez Corden tweeted a really interesting tweet saying that Amazon Luna have just released to UK users Fortnite for free on cloud. It's 18 million UK Prime users.
Yeah, potential users. And not all of them obviously have Luna, but you know.
They're not, but you know, if you're going to judge Microsoft as dominating a space, Amazon have just instantly dominated that space in the UK. I mean,
well, I think it makes a good point that, hey, this market is not necessarily just Sony and Microsoft, you know, especially when you're getting into this weird cloud thing. And why we're looking at just Sony when we should be looking at Amazon, at the other big players that are out there that are trying to enter in some form or another, you know. But even like that, even with that said, like Mikey said, this is all kind of make-believe hoopla numbers, you know, and it's kind of really weird to be regulating based on a market that is this young, you know. If they're going to get out this early ahead of markets, if cloud gaming is indeed the hold up here, there's a lot of places where they didn't step in so early, such as electric vehicle. There's all kinds of other, you know, innovative industries where they let people get way farther along in the process before they started looking at more regulations and concerns as far as monopolies and that kind of stuff. So it's always been kind of weird. One last thing I wanted to add is just in the US too, it's weird that the politicians are taking these regulatory bodies and kind of giving them some lashings in public. We've had some reviews over here too, some Microsoft friendly lawmakers probably, but definitely challenged. And we're asking some of the same questions. So there's a lot of parallels between the US and the UK. I think Bobby Kotick at one point suggested there might have been a secret rendezvous between the two regulatory leads because they did meet and everybody kind of dismissed it. But now some rumor makers, if you will, are kind of saying, well, hey, maybe, you know, they're so lined up in how they're approaching this, and maybe there is some kind of, you know, back and forth going between the two. But anyways, it's just been a wild week again, you know.
They were asked about that, and they said they wouldn't answer.
So there
confidentiality agreements or something like that.
This is about conflict trading data with the.
Well, FTC, you know, or maybe just kind of, hey, how are you guys doing it? You know, they are much wiser than any of us when you deal with it, but there's always a part of human nature. I don't care what level you're at, even, you know, at the presidency of any country, you know, there's always some human nature involved, and it definitely leaves you to believe, you know, maybe that's a possibility at least.
Sorry, go on, Mikey.
Oh, I was just going to say, the big problem, though, with the collaboration, if there is I think the CMA's decision, both the CMA and the EU's decision, hurts the FTC's case. And here's why. Because in the US, you know, their big shot was at the competition with Sony. And if both the CMA and the EU found that the competition with Sony was not an issue, it was really cloud gaming. In the US, historically, in a nascent market like cloud gaming that hasn't actually taken off, you can't regulate a company buying another company based on that. Yep. Historically, it goes in the favor of the company that's purchasing one. It doesn't go in favor of the government going against it. And that's just historical data. That's, you know, how the U.S. law functions here, which is what it's precedent. Yeah. Precedent is huge in the U.S. I don't know how it is in other places, but here, this really hurts the FTC's case, in my opinion. So another reason they probably definitely don't want to go to federal court. So if they were collaborating, they did it wrong.
And there's definitely a case to be made here that the FTC has been kind of playing a game of chicken, trying to delay and wait as long as possible, hoping that somebody else would come to their rescue to maybe you know, make Microsoft and Activision give this up, and then they can be like, oh yeah, see, we were on the right side of that one, blah blah blah. But definitely doesn't look to be the case here. If you're picking a big tech merger to stop, I mean, Microsoft is a pretty formidable opponent if they have everything lined up the way they think they do.
And this is also going to go back to Mikey's point. is this isn't the first time that the CMA has fudged on their numbers. They got called out with it, with the whole Sony console and everything like that, so bad that they're like, yeah, we don't have a case here. So they, like he was saying, they dropped that whole argument about the whole Sony thing. So I can't see this going to CMA or going to CAT, and then they kick it back to the CMA, and the CMA has any kind of argument. I mean, especially with Parliament telling them, like, hey, you guys got to think about the wider audience. Like, they're getting grilled. If you ever seen what happened with the FTC, now that's being heavily scrutinized by the government, CMA is making the same exact mistakes the FTC has, and they're getting grilled on it.
I'll give you a very. So no, go on, Ivan.
I was just gonna say, like with the FTC, basically making it more about Xbox and PlayStation rather than the cloud gaming thing. Do you think that's because Xbox has a better foothold in America? I know usually in America they do pretty well. So do you think maybe for the FTC that was a better thing to jump on than with the CMA? It's we're just going to jump on the cloud idea because it's PlayStation's usually pretty good in Europe.
It could be, but they're still also getting beat by Sony here.
Yeah.
It is a bit trickier here though, for sure. It's actually a good point. I didn't consider that, but again, with these international markets coming out against that decision, it doesn't help them, because precedent is king, and if the cloud argument is the only one they end up having left, then they're done. But by many other accounts, people already think they're done. So it's really the CMA that has to fall. Otherwise, they could get cut off, according to Satya.
It will fall. It will fall because, very briefly, for people out of the situation here, we have a prime minister who's floundering big time. We just had what you would have midterm elections kind of thing. I don't know, halfway through his, and they've just lost 1,000 council seats across the country, and there's not many. That's a huge amount. He's declared that the country's open for business. We're going to be the new Silicon Valley of the EU, and this goes against everything he's pledged. So he's going to, Rishi Sunak is going to have some kind of sway with the CMA, and it was even hit the news last week that he's going to lean on them. The words will lean on the CMA. So I think they will fall. But going back to what I said before, they put themselves in a corner, because if they hadn't put that tweet out, they could have folded or made some concessions, and it would have looked in line. But now they've doubled down on what they said, and it's just a bad look for them altogether.
Go ahead.
I was going to say what else was interesting for me 2 days ago. I don't know if I'm pronouncing his name right. The guy Strauss Zelnick from Take-Two came out and said about the deal. He agrees with the deal, and he's the CEO of Take-Two, and he's in support of it. But as part of his interview, he was saying that you were talking about cloud gaming as a platform. He's saying that everybody's got it wrong, and to him, as a CEO of a giant publisher, cloud gaming isn't a platform. It's just a new distribution model, and it shouldn't be regarded as a platform. It's just another distribution model, and everybody's sort of up in arms about it. And they've got the wrong perception of what cloud gaming is, which I found was interesting.
Very few people use cloud gaming as their primary source. The only time I've ever seen anybody that does was the Redditors that loved the Stadia subreddit, and the one guy that came up here and he said that months ago, he's like, yeah, I use Game Pass as my main platform for cloud gaming now. And we just went, what?
He didn't own an Xbox, did he? He bought Game Pass, and that's how he played.
It's feasible. It really is feasible. I'm not saying it, but that's not how Microsoft markets it. It's always been an expansion of their other services. It's not the primary way to play, even on this system. If they didn't have the consoles and PC added, the streaming part wouldn't be nearly as big a deal as it is. And the reason that it is such a big deal is because it lets you take those games that you're already playing to different places in an easy and accessible way. But like I said, not as a primary way, as an extension of the way that you're already playing the games. And it's really something that the CMA doesn't really even address.
Yeah, I use it exclusively when I travel. I don't even bring my Switch anymore. I bring my Chromecast, my controller, and I got my phone, and I just stream everything to the TV and then play it that way. Yeah, I'm not playing Call of Duty. No. I mean, like Mikey's point, I can see why. Competitive gaming is not it won't be stable on cloud.
Well, get this. On the 17th of April, Jez Corden tweeted, the UK says Microsoft has 60% of the cloud gaming market. But then he says, Microsoft says it only has server capacity for 5,000 concurrent users in the cloud. So we know about our entire country of 63 million people. They only have server capacity for 5,000 people playing at once in our country.
Yeah, it's crazy.
It's a non-entity. It makes it's
because again they counted every Game Pass user as constantly just playing, and it's like that's not. Especially after the big one to me was when they signed with the mobile company. They're your largest mobile provider, and they're like, yeah, we're going to bring all Xbox games and Activision games if we get them to the service. It's like, whoa, you're bringing it to the biggest provider of what cloud gaming could be, and the CMA still said,
well, they just
middle finger emoji.
Yeah, and
what we're announced having it this week with who was it they've announced with this week, and a cloud gaming provider. Phil Spencer set up and
NVIDIA got some games, and of course they've made all the packs of
they got the Bethesda games,
Boysteroid, and they have all these deals, and then Xbox is definitely rolling out the red carpet, and they're going to be required to in a lot of cases if this goes through in the EU, which will probably translate to everywhere in the world. So while we're on this, go ahead.
Oh, I was going to say one last thing is right now. The MS or Xbox's fight isn't with the CMA anymore. It's with CAT. So if they kick back, if I'm correct, I don't know, Mikey might know more about this, or you, Moko, as well. If they kick it back from CATs to the CMA can't use their argument anymore because they've deemed it illegal, either not well put together, whatever it is. So then that totally crosses out their whole theory of harm through cloud gaming.
It's not independent. Not independent. No, the CMA. It goes back to the CMA to review their own decision.
Yeah, they can't use anything that is ruled. The reason they sent it back. If they dismiss something, they're like, "Hey, that's wrong." They can't use that reasoning to support their argument.
So
but there's other parts of it that they can still use. It sounds like it's still an uphill battle.
Well, that's their whole argument, though. So if the CMA or if the CAT kicks that back to CMA, what do they have?
I don't know if they can reinvent something. That's something I'm confused to. Can they?
It's really up to them. They can still go, we're going to block this based on the 5 other things you said.
Actually, you're right. The rain, whatever they're basing it on.
Well, it would also be the possibility of CAT actually just skipping all that, saying, "Yeah, CMA's idiots. We're just going to rule on the matter." It's rare, but it has happened before. I think I saw Florian and Gaz going back and forth about it on Twitter. It was actually pretty hilarious.
I think Anthony was kind of getting at this, and I think if you are in favor of this, you're not really hoping for the regulatory bodies to kind of solve this for you, if you will. You're hoping for political pressure, and it does sound like that's something that's building, like I said, both here and in the U.S. And if you get lawmakers grilling the regulators, if you get them pushing, hey, we want to be open for business, what's up with all these closed for business memes? You act like it doesn't matter. People see that. It's a message that gets out there, and they're probably not going to like that. So, again, I'm not saying that's what's going to happen for sure, but I think that might be one of the better angles for Microsoft at this point in the UK.
It was definitely unprecedented.
I can't pronounce his name. I've forgotten it.
Florian Mueller,
who is a lead on this thing.
He tweeted yesterday. He's been following all the court cases live, but he tweeted yesterday something about there's a deadline approaching on Monday in the US, and he's saying that Microsoft are going to close on the deal without FTC approval, and apparently there's some deadline approaching on Monday or next Monday. And he thinks that Microsoft are just going to do that. They're going to close without the FTC because, the trouble they'd be in for not doing that, I'd have to go back to his original tweets, rather than letting it go to, it's with the government basically. And he's like, he thinks that's what they'll do. They'll sort of go ahead without FTC approval.
They'll force the FTC to go to federal court. Because they believe they can win.
Yeah, and they might be right. So I'm going to try to steer us out of here. We've really been in it for a long time. If that's okay, if there's anything really, any last thoughts, maybe let's give that a chance.
I just wanted to point out, Satya Nadella, when he was asked, "Are you guys just gonna, pull out of the UK over the ABK deal?" And he's like, "Wait for it to all play out." So it's a very non-answer that's very telling of what their approach to the UK could be if they don't.
Well, he's trying to. But again,
he's shooting over the bow, man. He's shooting over the bow. He's like, hey, and people are like, well, what are they gonna do? Close the playground, close Rare? No, but they might take future projects, put them into the EU, for example. And if you go to Activision, is it Lulu? She's very aggressive on Twitter. She, as soon as the deal closed in the EU, her first tweet was, "We look forward to expanding our projects in the EU with their forward thinking." Something along these lines. Kind of just throwing the cold shoulder at the UK. Pressure.
Yeah, basically, Nadella just pretty much eloquently said, "Around and find out." And hey, that's essentially what he said.
And a man of his position, that's exactly what that translated to.
It was a very eloquent way of saying it, but there's also something called ring fencing, and I don't want to go too far down because this is something that is very complicated, but it's hard to explain in a basic concept. But basically what they could do is make a subset of Xbox. So basically it's still owned by Xbox and Microsoft. It's just ran differently. So this is where you start running into the fact where they can either not make ABK games. It's basically like the ABK deal never happened. And UK is ran how Xbox is now, but just only in the UK. So sure, they'll get access to certain Game Pass, but probably cloud will go away and probably ABK games.
I don't want that. That's not what we want.
Yeah, so that is an option. It's a very nuclear option because now they have to basically divest themselves from Xbox and create a whole new division that is regulated and ran separately with its own financials. And if Xbox isn't that sustainable in the UK, they're going to run into some issues because they have to be, I think, financially independent. Like I said, it's a very complicated issue, but there is cause for that.
Imagine the biggest character of the Modern Warfare franchise, Captain John Price from the UK. Can't even play Call of Duty. Oh, man. I don't want that. I'm laughing, but I really don't want that to happen. And I hope that's not the route that they go if they do.
They could do marketing deals, so like they would still exist. So basically, but they would probably be heavily regulated. Like Xbox can't be like, oh, we'll get around this $1 for Game Pass, COD on Game Pass. Here you go. Here's your buck. But they'll probably still have to do traditional marketing the way we'll give you, 60 million to put this on Game Pass kind of thing. It would all be by the book on the up and up. But it's just something so complicated and so convoluted, you can't really say what's going to be what. But it's a nuclear option, so there is that. Geofencing or ring fencing, they're both kind of the same thing.
There is a lot of theorizing and pondering, and people asking what if, and everybody's looking at these different scenarios, and our answers are finally coming, but it's still going to be a little bit more of a dance no matter how you look at it. So just to kind of tie in with this, we should talk about the Gamers lawsuit real quick, and some news that broke today.
Goodbye. Joke of a lawsuit.
It was pretty much
there. You can move on.
Dude, the judge beat them. Like, I was watching Florian's live tweets and I was just like, dude, stop. Like, judge, stop. They're already dead. Please. Like, I'm just getting like blood splatter just across my screen on how bad the judge, like, it wasn't even Microsoft's lawyer. It was the judge that was just absolutely destroying the other side of the lawyers. It was insane.
Right. And speaking of fatalities, oh yeah, this is a good one. Let's roll into Mortal Kombat 1, the review this week.
Nice.
Thank you. I have to pat myself on the back for that. We got the review trailer. There was a lot of not so subtle rumors. We had a clock ticking, like it was going to be reset to 1, and everybody was right in their guess anyway. So we did get a trailer for the gameplay. I'm so happy that we have Ivan here this week, and I don't know how we've ever really talked about your Mortal Kombat play, and if you enjoyed that franchise, and what you think about it, and what did you think about the trailer? I'm going to pull it up while you're talking here.
I think the trailer looks great, and like I'm a huge Mortal Kombat fan as well. Like, I just love fighting games. And I think resetting is kind of, I mean, they were sort of aiming for that anyway, if you've been following like 11 and things like that. So it made sense. And I think that's what they need to do, especially where it feels, well, maybe not Tekken 8. Tekken 8 looks like they're going, more chaotic than usual, but at least Street Fighter 6 and a lot of the 2D fighters, it feels like they're doing a return to form. So I'm hoping Mortal Kombat kind of starts going back to where it used to be a little bit, because it's starting to feel a little injustice-like. I remember a lot of people not being in love with 11. They were more into 10 and 9, things like that. So, hopefully this gets back to that, because 11 was sort of a misstep, in my opinion. And I like that this year is just decked out in fighting games. We got Street Fighter again, we got Tekken again, Mortal Kombat again. It feels like there was a bit of a slow period with fighting games, and they started coming back around like 2016. I'm just glad that they're here. You know,
it is kind of a bit of a revival, so that's kind of a good point. So, there's one part in this trailer that really kind of grabbed me. I've seen every Mortal Kombat fatality from the beginnings, from the Super Nintendo days when they didn't have blood and all that. But there's a part where at the end where somebody's just getting smoked and they kind of get smashed from the top, and they're screaming as they get it, like as the impact happens, they're screaming, and then their voice box just kind of does this little thing as it goes all the way to the ground, and then they just explode everywhere, man. And that was the first fatality I've seen in a long time in Mortal Kombat, where it really reminded me of just how brutal it was to see those way back in the day in the arcades, you know, and you'd walk by with your parents and they'd be like, you can't go in there, what is that, you know, and there'd just be a line around the corner of people waiting to play it. So so exciting.
There's go and play 11. There's brutal ones, because remember, when Grim wasn't on the show, I don't even know if I ever told you this, I 100%ed Mortal Kombat 11.
Oh, you did? Oh yeah, we were talking about that. Is that the one?
And I'm like, if Grim was here, he'd be so proud that I did 250 towers.
Oh yeah, now I remember.
And I hated that game when I was done. But when I saw the trailer, I'm like, why am I into the story now? Oh no, because they're rebooting. Because spoiler alert, at the end of the game, they're going with the line that Liu Kang defeats Kronia and takes over the timeline. So he's rebooting it to fit his narrative, so that Kronia doesn't control it anymore and basically try to kill off the good guys. Just to boil it down. But it seems really interesting, because it's like, do players get to make more of those choices to develop the storyline? Can you go back and make Sub-Zero and Scorpion actual mortal enemies again, or can you just make them brothers right off the bat? Because I kind of want to see them hate each other again. I really do. I don't want them to get along anymore. It was fun seeing that in 11, but I'm like, it also feels really wrong. I just want to see Scorpion rip his head off, because I hate Sub-Zero.
Right. How's Reptile fit into that? Weird. Genuine question. How does Reptile fit into that? Grim, do you know? Like, they had variants of Scorpion and Sub-Zero. There was like Reptile, and he would spit acid, and he was green. How does he fit into the lore? Do you know it all, or is that a weird question?
I think he's from the other world or whatever.
Tribe, right?
Yeah, he's from
maybe it
tribe.
is.
Okay.
Yeah, because they all have like their own colors. There was also Chameleon, if you remember that.
Yeah,
that was
he was kind of invisible. Yeah, right. Okay.
Yeah.
They have the robot.
Yeah, the robot.
What is it?
Well, that was weird, because in one of the games they switched it, because at one point it was supposed to be Smoke who turned into the robot, and then they changed it to Sub-Zero turning into the robot. Then there was also Cyrax as well.
Cyrax is who I was going to say. Yeah. It's really weird how you play Mortal Kombat, especially the more recent ones, and all of a sudden you're like, hey, this game kind of has a cool story, and you kind of get invested in the cutscenes and stuff. So I'm happy to see this one. I'm excited for it, actually.
So that Jean-Claude Van Damme is going to be Johnny Cage in it as well. He's signed up to add his likeness to that character. I'm just reading.
Jean-Claude Van Damme?
I know. I'm just sitting, my jaw's like on the floor right now. I'm like, what?
The picture of him is like he's in a full suit on the red carpet doing the splits.
Oh, wow.
That's so perfect. And it's even more perfect because Jean-Claude Van Damme, if I remember right, when he got into movies, he said he was a martial artist and he wasn't. He didn't actually have any of the credentials that he said he did. So it's like perfect for Johnny Cage for some reason, because it just feels like a fake guy.
Do you remember when Jean-Claude Van Damme was Guile in Street Fighter movie?
Yes.
Oh, that's right.
With Kylie Minogue.
There was the movie to video
Sonic
game too,
movie.
Which was terrible if you ever played it.
Oh man,
the Street Fighter movie to video game, awful.
Oh man, the movie was bad too. I loved it though.
Yeah.
So two things. I've actually met Jean-Claude Van Damme when I worked at Sony Pictures. Yeah, he's yes, I have worked at Sony Pictures.
Can he dance American? That doesn't matter.
What? So yeah, he's
one of his best scenes where he says to the person that bar, he goes, "Can you dance American?" What is the film?
I mean, I know all the old movies. I don't know, Bloodsport. There's so many of them.
Yeah.
So like shitty dance.
He's like he's an interesting dude. He's a kind of a chauvinist. I'm not gonna lie.
Oh.
We were there, and he wanted me to show him where like the coffee house was, but he was like the because I just started there, so like the one other lady, she was like, "Oh, I can show you." He's like, "No, you get my car. Come on, show me." And I was like, "Dude, I don't know where you're going. I don't know where I'm going." I was like, "She can help you though." And he's like, "No, I want you. No, I don't want her. I want you to get in my car. Show me where it's at." Like he did not want help from her at all. Like, I don't know if it was just, I don't know, something weird. He was just really, really weird dude.
Cool.
Cool.
I feel like we're like the National Enquirer now. Like the show's turned over.
I told him no. Yeah, I told him no.
Coffee shop.
That's good for you.
No, like it was all the way across the lot, I guess. I had no idea how to get there. Like I'm like 2 weeks in. Like this was when I was like just in like high school or something. It was like some internship or something I got involved with. And yeah, it was really weird. Like he did not want to listen to her. He didn't want to take any of her advice. But just because I was a guy and he just wanted me to jump into his car with him. And I was like, nah, man, I'm not trying to get fired. And two, I really don't know where I'm going. I'm going to take you to the wrong place. But he didn't want to hear it. But I never did. I was like, nah, sorry, man. I got to go. And I left.
That's my opportunity. It's like whatever you want, John.
Jeff, you always
I'm
say
here.
Yes.
Yeah.
Always say yes.
Let me help you.
Russell Brand had this amazing quote where he said, whatever option gives the best anecdote, that's what I'm going to take.
That's actually a fantastic quote. I like that.
Yeah, because I mean, I've met Drew Barrymore, Liv Tyler. I've met them all, like a lot
Hollywood.
of different. Yeah, Jennifer Love Hewitt, because that's when they were filming the last season of Party of Five.
Nice.
Was there, and then Drew Barrymore, she came on the lot. But yeah, they tell you don't get like involved with them, like don't try and go out of your way. Like you got to be professional. So like I was like, nah, I'm not trying to get let go on this. This is a pretty cool gig. So. And then two, the last part of that is I'm going to make that gurgling sound Foreman made into a soundbite for the show.
That's great. I can't wait for that. I'm not going to be here next week. Sorry, guys. Just kidding.
So that's
so
my fun Jean-Claude Van Damme story.
That's right. Let's bring it back in.
Back
to game news.
I took you guys off the rails.
No, that's okay. We have to go off the rails at least twice a show, I think. So let's talk. This isn't a good one either, though. I'm gonna go with it anyway. Sega says that they might be bumping their AAA games to $70, kind of following suit with the first party publishers that we're seeing now. So just kind of industry standard, it appears to be at this point. This is where we're going. So I have problems with this, and it's not necessarily the price point. It's the half-baked games that we're getting at this price point. I think Zelda actually is a case to be made where, hey, that one might have actually been worth $70. Seems pretty polished outside of the limitations of the Switch, but we definitely have some examples out there where not really not feeling it yet. I'm not anyway. So Redfall is a prime example. If we can just take that outside of the Game Pass conversation for a second, there are people out there that paid for it, and you know what? They probably have a lot of gripes and a lot of genuine ones, and yeah, that's tough, and that's a bad look for Xbox. So I did want to mention I played the Quarry. I've been meaning to play this for a few weeks. That's one of those $70 titles you can find on sale. It's a pretty good game. It's like Life is Strange a little bit, kind of a walking simulator, but with an 80s horror vibe. Did any of you guys get a chance to play that one? As we're talking about $70 games.
I've seen it and I've really wanted to, but I've been so backlogged. It's like one of those narrative set, right?
Yeah,
like
it has a
Heavy
weird
Rain.
David Arquette's in it, and it's like weirdly realistic to him, and it's just kind of if you like 80s slasher flicks, it's got that kind of vibe. You probably will enjoy it. I think it's available on PlayStation's streaming service if you game over there. But anyways, even that I would not pay $70 for. I've not played a game where I'm like, that's $70. Diablo I paid for. I think I'll be happy because I know I'm going to get my $70 out of that. But is there a game that Sega produces? Is there a game that Sega produces where you'd pay $70 and you'd feel comfortable with it, like on a pre-order basis?
If somebody says Sonic Frontiers, I'm going to argue with you.
I was going to say probably like the Yakuza or like a Dragon series.
I think so.
Only because I've been a fan for so long. So it's like now I'm committed. But I don't think I should be paying $70 for that, even as a fan. You know?
Also, I want to make one shout out for the Quarry because my brother-in-law bought me the title. I have not played it yet. I promise I'm going to play it this week now because it was mentioned on the podcast.
Okay, you'll get through. I think that's one that you'll rip right through because you're such like a game shredder anyway. So let me know what you think about it. It's kind of an interesting kind of game. It's a little unique, I think.
Yeah, it's like a Heavy Rain Detroit Become Human style, right? Where you're on like a linear path, and depending on what choices you make depends on where the story goes, right?
That's pretty good.
Both great games. Both
like Quantic Dreams.
Yeah.
Style game.
Detroit Become Human. That was a weird game. My daughter made me play that. I was like, I don't know. I'm uncomfortable. I don't. I'm not ready for these questions. We should kind of talking about AI. Oh my God, the segues today. We should talk about Take-Two saying that AI created hit games are a fantasy and genius is the domain of human beings, and I believe will stay that way, or it will stay that way. So we've never really discussed this. What about AI in games as far as game design, procedural levels? Let's talk about NPCs, maybe generated answers and replies. Like my mind goes really crazy because I think this is the next frontier in gaming. It's not VR. It's going to be AI, but it's going to be how it's used. So what do you like? What does your brain do when you guys start thinking about this? Like what are the infinite possibilities that you could come up with?
Well, there's one already out. You bring it up, the AI generated content. Lydia will respond in character in a mod for Skyrim now. But somebody was trying to solve a puzzle with her and that didn't really work out. But she responds in character based on what you say. So it's an infinite number of responses now based on what the AI can build based off her profile. And that to me, stuff like that is exciting. And to tie that back into what Take-Two says, all of that of what she says is based on something that someone wrote, a human wrote. An AI didn't write her character, her background, where she was from and all that. I mean, it could, but the current AI model takes from human inspiration and twists it into its own thing. It can't create inspiration itself. We're not there. Maybe someday we will be. So that's why I'll never say that it will stay that way forever. But everything that an AI writes is based on what a human has already done. So stuff like that is really cool, though. An infinite number of responses from your companion now, instead of like one that from Diablo 3, I get so sick and tired of. I'm afraid not. Every time I try to cast a spell, my wife was trying to use her necromancer to get the 500 elites killed with skeletons, and she was casting skeleton command every time. I go, I'm afraid not, because she couldn't cast it anymore because she didn't have it ready. And it's like every time I heard that, I'm like, hi, afraid not, I'm dad. And it got to be a meme because I got so sick of hearing the same line. So stuff like that, super cool.
I think you can turn off air speech in the settings. But it is super annoying. But I don't think that option was in Diablo 4 because I was searching for it immediately. So maybe in Diablo 3 you can, but it also becomes I took an arrow in the knee. And this is one of the examples I saw somebody do with AI. They were just kind of messing around and they went and they're like, well, what happened when you took that arrow to the knee? Tell me the story. And then all of a sudden, the guy, it took, you could see, obviously it was generating the story. And then it came out voice acted and it spit out some kind of reasonable, reconceptualization of what happened when he took the arrow to the knee. And it was like a 2-paragraph story if you wanted to give it some length. And I was like, well, that added some character to it, even though totally not ready to happen yet. But you can see where the potential is for it. But going back to the point here, it's still... I look at this like when you look at the AI imagery, when they do the paintings and the pictures and stuff, sure, they can do a lot of cool stuff, but you're never going to get something that really makes people think. It's not like, that's where the genius comes in, where you create art, you draw something that gets people, churning and their heads, thinking about stuff, or it's bigger than just the picture that you're seeing. And I think that's why AI can't really step into the shoes of humans for that kind of stuff. But we've made a lot of good points where they might be able to help out. And yeah, go ahead.
Are you talking only about story things here? Because what about a game? I'm surprised it so a game like GTA 6, right, which they're developing now, which is these games getting bigger, whole cities like Cyberpunk, that kind of thing, like just entire sprawling cities, and you'd think that AI would be embraced by those developers to help. It's like procedural generation, isn't it? To help expand that quicker with less development work.
Immediately, that seems like a great example. Like, what about the actions of the citizens in the city? The traffic, and to make it more random, more realistic. It's already kind of funny walking around and seeing the characters interact with each other. Well, what if all of a sudden there was some kind of AI model working too, where the same characters are having a completely different experience, somewhere else or in somebody else's game?
Yeah, I don't know.
What if,
go ahead.
what if like an NPC gets bumped into too many times from other NPCs, and now he's just like
he's had enough. Right?
starts shooting everyone based on that. Like
then the cops react,
dynamic models,
like, right?
Yeah.
It's just like and it's really fun to think about that kind of stuff. So I forgot to mention.
I'm into it. I just think it's. I mean, I've used briefly. I've used ChatGPT and I've seen a lot of this stuff online. It intrigues me. I find it super interesting. Games like The Sims, for example, or something that's really, it's just every single player's experience will be completely different every time.
Yeah.
What would Sims generated chat sound like though? Just more of
eventually.
I'm not talking about chats, just about actions and thinking about branching timelines of
I don't know. Like I wouldn't like an AI generated game like where it's majority AI created. You lose that human element, and you don't really notice it until like even No Man's Sky. Yeah, sure, you got millions and millions of planets that are all procedurally generated, but every time you go to that planet, you kind of still see the same textures. You still see the planets kind of built somewhat the same way. It's just reshaped slightly different. There's not where you get like these crazy biodomes where it's like now you're underwater and wilder planet. I don't know. It's just you have to have a human element to a certain extent to give it that life, to give it that immersion. Sure. I mean, AI is not sentient. And if it ever is sentient, I'd be scared as all hell because now we're looking at Skynet, kind of scenario. But
I think it is kind of fun though, going from game to game, kind of like Anthony was doing. It's like, what about The Sims? What about this? How could they use it here? Grand Theft Auto, what about all these different kind of.
Well, GTA 6 has taken what? How many long has GTA 6 been taken to develop? Could that have been? Could that have been halved?
I don't know.
Could it have been halved using technology? I think AI should be something that you use and work alongside.
Anthony, GTA 6, and you just mentioned we have another news story that we can jump right into. We are on this is like a combo. I think we're at 4 right now, so we should talk that Take-Two. Is that correct? They announced. Is that right? Is that GTA?
Yeah, Take-Two.
They did the financial expectations.
Or not Rockstar.
Yeah, Rockstar, owned by anyway.
Take-Two. Yeah.
Take-Two parent company. So anyways, the story is that they released expected financials, and they're expecting a very, very big year. So fiscal year, which isn't December or January to December like most of us think, but I don't know what theirs is. It's usually like March to March or something like that. But anyways, they're expecting to make a lot of money coming up pretty soon, and a lot of people are starting to think that this means that we're going to get some Grand Theft Auto 6 news for real very soon too. I actually have never looked into this. Do they have a history with announcing, like when they announce the game comes out pretty soon, right? It's not like a 4-year development cycle after they announce the games. Like they've been pretty good. When Grand Theft Auto 5 came out, it was so long ago I can't remember, but
the first trailer dropped. It wasn't that far in advance of release.
Yeah. And we do know that
this a year.
And we do know this has been being worked on for a while. There's been a lot of leaks and that kind of stuff. So anyways, the takeaway here is that if you believe rumors and you believe the financial reports from the company itself, that we might finally be getting news on what might be, I think, the biggest game of this generation. Is that fair? Yeah. Can you guys think of, I mean, Zelda's huge, but this is multi-platform. It's just everybody's going to want it.
It's going to be immense.
Yeah.
But GTA 5 was like, I remember like the anticipation of GTA 5 and it was broken on launch day. I don't know if you remember this. Nobody could get into GTA Online for like 24, 48 hours. This is just going to be, it's going to be immense. It's going to be the biggest media launch in history, I think. But
GTA 5 has sold 180 million copies. If every single one of those copies is owned by one person, it would be 2% of the world's population owns a copy.
Which is 1 in 50 people everywhere. Every single person, people that aren't even in developed nations and stuff. It's really insane to think about.
To be fair with that number, it's cheaper to buy a shark card with the game included than it is to buy the actual game on a lot of these sales. So a lot of people will just buy the shark card because it comes with the game.
They get another copy of the game.
And they get another copy of the game.
And also, wasn't the game released like on 3 different occasions, like PS3, Xbox 360, PS4,
Yeah.
Xbox One?
Yeah.
and
That's why I
PS5,
gave the
yeah.
caveat if every single one of those copies was owned by one person, because I bought
Yeah.
2 copies at least.
Yeah.
It launched, you got it. I mean, it launched on 360. Like,
Mhm.
that's just insane when you think about that. And then GTA 6 is coming out like 2 generations later.
Also, I
But-
did look into it. GTA 5 was announced on November 2011, and it released September 17th, 2013. So almost a 2-year gap
Almost
for that
2 years.
time.
Yeah, you
But
know
I
what?
think at this point, it's been announced, so
There's the rumors on early next year. So January, February.
Well,
next year
they're
is-
aiming for
is
$8
chosen to see.
billion, and most people in the fiscal year, and most people don't see how they could do that without releasing Grand Theft Auto 6. So, and maybe they're cooking up a new table tennis game. I don't know, but anyways,
I was about to say, new table tennis.
that
game
might
was
do it.
fire. That
It was
game was
talk of-
fun. I don't care what anybody says. That game was
It
awesome.
was fun.
no, it
It was
was.
fun.
I gushed to my wife about it the other day. I'm like, dude, Rockstar used to be so good at making other games.
Yeah,
Like,
right.
This is one of the funnest games I ever played, because I remember playing the demo. This
That
is
was
one
the
of the
engine
reasons I
test,
bought a
wasn't it?
360. I played a
Yeah.
demo at Target, and I'm like, that looks so good. And it was with King Kong too, Peter Jackson's King Kong.
Mhm.
I'm like,
that's
that's
right.
what games look like nowadays.
Oh my
I'm
gosh.
buying an Xbox 360. Oh
Yeah,
my gosh.
I remember the King Kong game. And speaking of demos, I gotta stop. We have news about Dredge this week. Mikey's really been pumping up Dredge. Everybody can now play it for an hour. If you've been really wanting to get a taste of it, that's enough time to at least get
I've
in
been
there.
playing it.
You bought it?
Yeah, I bought it and I've been playing it.
Nice.
It's really, really fun.
That's
It's very interesting.
that's 2 of us up here now. And Anthony, Ivan, no, nobody else got Dredge yet.
No,
Well, us losers up here without Dredge. We can play it now for an hour, so I actually might give it a try because I've heard nothing but good things about it. So, Mikey, why don't you give us a 30-second review again in case people weren't with us last time?
If you're really into, I'm trying to remember the name of that type of horror or type of storytelling. I can't remember it.
I want to help you so
It's gonna
bad.
drive me nuts. I'm gonna remember at the end of the show, and then.
All right,
but,
Kevin, give us a
it-
30-second review. I'm kidding.
Well, it's really it's just a fun time waster. Like, you get into the game, I wasn't sure what to expect. All I knew is that you had this boat, you did some fishing, and it's just mysterious how you go about it. Go in blind. Don't look up a lot of what it is. Just know it's a time waster that will really grapple at you. And there's a lot to do. Like, you'll go out, you'll do your first fishing experience, you'll come back, and the game builds upon itself. You'll just want to keep upgrading your boat. You'll want to keep upgrading your other stuff. You'll want to keep, like, research parts and all that. And it's just the story is there too. There's like some side missions too that are they're not special really in any way, but they're just creepy. The whole game has this sense of creepiness and actual danger involved, and at points I've just like scared. I've jumped I've actually jumped.
Is it a fishing game?
Yeah.
It is.
There's one.
I feel like that's the
There's one
reaction
time I was
every
fishing
time.
though.
A horror fishing game.
Is that a fishing
It's
game?
a horror fishing game.
Yeah. And it works. It works. It sounds ridiculous, but it 100% works. It pairs so well.
Okay.
Yeah. Like, there's some, like Mikey was saying, where you get terrified because you don't know. You have to go to like a different island or like a different part of the map, and you're like, damn, is my boat fast enough to make it there by the time it gets nighttime? Like, you start thinking of like, oh man, like, am I going to be able to do this? And then all of a sudden, like, they have a panic thing that sets in. I'm not going to go too much, but yeah, that starts going. You start seeing weird stuff pop up. It sets the immersion very, very well for being so simple, especially with its animation and art style. It's just all hand-drawn stuff. So it's ridiculous, but it's definitely, I'd say it's definitely up there with probably one of my games of the year so far because of how it works and pairs everything so well together.
Wow.
But speaking of horror, Dead by Daylight.
Yes, yes. The chain continues. We're never beating this record.
Are we all going to get one in?
I hope so.
Okay, hold on. I just want to read this headline, and I want you to guess, if you don't know, if he's going to be a monster or a hero or survivor, I guess. Dead by Daylight, Nicolas Cage, launching July 5th.
It's going to be a bad guy, surely. My hit monster.
Yeah, I think he'll be a killer.
I can't answer.
Yeah,
because
I don't
so
actually
much
know. I
money.
haven't read
Okay.
the story.
I do know because I guessed earlier and somebody corrected me.
Is it?
And I think it was Batman, one of our other mods, and he is a survivor, I believe. And I was so
Let's see.
so
Really?
disappointed. I was so disappointed, man.
I had a
I
feeling
thought-
he was going to be a survivor, but I just didn't think because I think perk wise it would make sense for him to be a killer, but like I could see survivor making sense, you know.
Well, I just think markability wise, like, I mean, all the killers have been like they have Scream, they have Leatherface, they have, I think, Jason, they have Freddy Krueger. So I figured, like, marketing wise and being able to sell, like having Nick Cage as that would probably sell a bunch. But Survivor,
Yeah.
interesting. That's very interesting.
Yeah,
I would just like one of his killer abilities to just be him screaming at you like some nonsense and just you just stand in fear.
It just gives you that crazy
Talking,
look.
You just poo
Talking-
yourself.
talking of surviving, Stray was announced
Oh, he did. Okay.
for the Xbox.
You know what? I'm going with
All
it.
right, all
I
right.
liked it.
Which I haven't played because it was a PS exclusive.
It
Kev
is.
said it's his game of the year last year or something. Or
What?
it's like
Why?
incredible.
I don't know. What
And
was
I-
Kevin in that deep on it?
For
Yeah,
what? Stray?
Stray.
Yeah, Stray. When the
Yeah.
awards, when Jeff's Game Awards were last year, you were big on Stray, and I've been waiting to play.
Jeff's
it.
Game
Unbelievable.
Awards.
I couldn't believe it was announced.
Or
I'm
they're known as the
super pumped.
Keeleys now.
Yeah, the Keeleys.
Oh, okay.
Well, that's a great game coming out.
It is a very fun game. It was probably the first game I played when I got my PlayStation 5 because I'm a cat lover and I was just into the premise of it. It was a great display of what their controller will do. Some of that will be missed over on the Xbox side, but it's gimmicky.
Yeah.
It's gimmicky. It feels cool, but you don't notice it. I mean, it's fun on the PlayStation, but like I said, it's not going to make you enjoy the less game, and you're not going to enjoy the game less,
okay.
and you're not going to notice it on the Xbox. It's a very fun cat simulator. I think after a couple hours you kind of get used to the animations and it loses a little bit of the charm and becomes more of a game. It's kind of a fetch quest kind of game, you know, but I had a really good time with it. It's really cute and it's got a good story going for it.
And to be fair, you could beat the game in 2 hours or less. It's not like if you just power through, it's a super fast play. If you want to explore and be more like a cat, you can.
Man,
But
I don't
if you're
know.
just looking to just run it.
Like those puzzles, I guess if you have like a guide, man, or maybe I'm just slow, dude, because I definitely got hung on a few of the puzzles, which I'm sure were super simple, and I just couldn't figure out like where to go or something, and might have cost me like an hour here or an hour there, but it was still, it's definitely doable. It's a 1 day play if you're really focused for sure.
Yeah,
Nice.
it's
Okay.
I would say longer than 5 hours. You should be able to finish it up in like four
Oh,
or
Boy,
5.
I'm over here feeling like I have a dunce cap on or something. I'm like, what?
I'm
It's
just watching
super,
Mikey
super
itching.
quick.
It
what,
is.
What, Mikey, go on. What?
I have a new segue.
Oh, go boy.
Oh.
Okay.
Speaking of indie games of the year from last year,
Oh,
Power Wash Simulator is teased as SpongeBob SquarePants.
oh, and it,
I
can't
cannot
even say it right. I was too excited.
I cannot wait for that.
Do you
I
know where I've
can't.
just been today? 2 hours ago, I got back from
Well,
SpongeBob. the
Okay,
music
I didn't
Bottom?
know if you were gonna say power
Oh,
washing
yeah.
or from SpongeBob. So that's actually my
The
family
SpongeBob
loves
the musical,
SpongeBob.
so I am fully invested in SpongeBob today. That's great news.
Isn't
kid-
like the SpongeBob musical way too good than it should be? Like I was amazed
Oh,
by it.
yeah.
I was like,
It's
we have to
amazing.
talk.
Yeah, it's
I
amazing.
actually, I loved the SpongeBob musical. I don't know why. I have no idea. It's just such an amazing work.
It's
I
brilliant.
don't know how to
Brilliant.
put it. The music,
So-
just everything is just so wild. I did.
So Power Wash. Sorry, go on.
No, I was just gonna say the trailer. I was gonna pull up the trailer, but I remembered it is 10 seconds. I'll just describe it to you. It starts
Is it
off into
Bikini
the-
Bottom?
Yeah,
Like,
it
just-
starts in the Bikini Bottom sky. You see a power washer in front of you. You pan down from the sky, and it's looking at Squidward's house, and that's it. That's the whole trailer. Like you don't get to
What?
see any gameplay, but that was enough to make like millions of people like kind of lose their mind and say, "I cannot wait to get into Bikini Bottom and
can't
clean
wait to
Squidward's
clean-
house." Which it's 2023, you know. If you would have said that, that would be a phrase people would be saying to me like 2 years ago. I'd have been like, "What are you talking about?" But here we are.
And then they get an AI generator to get Squidward to go, Foreman, why are you washing my house again?
Oh, hey, that's pretty good, man. I didn't. We're gonna sound you up on the voice team. So, yeah, I guess having gone through it, are we still working segues? I think we've run out of stories to make it work anymore. There's a couple things that are worth mentioning, though. Plague Tale Requiem now runs up to 120 frames per second through a recent patch. If you're an Assassin's Creed fan, Ubisoft plans to increase the number of developers by 40%, kind of continuing to... It looks like they've been putting a lot into Assassin's Creed moving forward. Like they're banking a lot of Ubisoft on what that franchise does.
The features were good though. Did you see Did you see this? What they've said, how it's going to function? They kind of stripped back to some of the old mechanics.
Yeah, everybody's kind of resetting now all of a sudden.
Yeah, it sounds good. It sounds good.
I'm good because I know people love that series. It's never like it's never been one that I've latched into, but I know people are very passionate about it.
I'm very surprised that after all of the anticipation for Ubisoft Plus, that it just came and went, and it's not discussed. Nobody's interested.
I forgot about it. I did.
It's on my dashboard on my it's on the home screen of your Xbox.
It just doesn't make sense. Like Ubisoft has nothing to show right now. Like I can understand if they had Assassin's Creed out coming. I mean, Far Cry 6 was pretty much their last biggest game. Skull and Bones is on its like 20th delay. Assassin's Creed is looking to be like an October release, so maybe that might be worth it then.
Yeah, this game's going to be on it, right? This is going to launch day and date on that service.
Supposedly the ultimate, yeah. So I mean, I could see people signing up for what, $17 a month just to get the ultimate of Assassin's Creed.
Is that what it's going to become?
And then delete it.
Like it's just going to become kind of like hey, let's rent my Ubisoft game and I have to buy it, and that's weird. That's weird to see how that business model really works.
Either wait 3 months for it to be on discount for $20, like Far Cry 6. I think it's now $15 on Steam. I just saw. Yeah, I'm like, I should rebuy it and play with my friend.
Meanwhile, they're famous for just going to deep discounts way early on, and then apparently that works for them. Activision has gone the other route where you can never find a Call of Duty game on sale. So,
the subtitle of that story is actually what got me more. Because it's like Ubisoft plans to increase the number of Assassin's Creed developers by 40%, and the subtitle of the article is the company has at least 6 new entries in the long-running series in development.
There was something about this recently, and they're not all full-fledged like AAA console titles. Like I think we're talking maybe mobile and that kind of stuff too. This feels like it was news maybe 6 months ago, maybe like within the last year anyway. So maybe we can dig in more on that and bring some more details.
Is the franchise that good?
That's what I'm saying. That's why I was saying like it seems like they've really like tripled down on it, and now they think everything is going to be Assassin's Creed. Yes. Yeah,
it's a solid series. It always been like they've always had this really cool narrative and different like the whole Animus project and everything, and the Templars, but they really went away from a lot of that, and just I think they kind of J.J. Abrams it, like how he did with Lost, where they just got so overblown and in over their head that they tried to make these really cheap connections, and the series just played itself out. And I think that's why they kind of ended with Desmond, and then that was really good. So when they ended the storyline with Desmond, that was great. But then now they inflated it, tried to make all these different weird areas. I don't know. I don't like the direction it went. I think they're improving it slowly but surely. Like Origins was a great start. I think they dropped the ball a little bit with the Spartan one, Odyssey. I think they kind of picked it back up with Valhalla. I really liked how a lot of the interactions in the open world, I think it's still way overblown and bloated. The world itself, I think they make it too big, and then they try and fill in that world, which makes it feel very artificial. And
Odyssey is
agreed.
I think Odyssey is too big. I know it's crazy, but it's too big. It's too big.
Valhalla felt the very same way, because it's like I was like, I don't have time for this, and I stopped playing. And that's when the Xbox Series X just came out.
Mm-hmm.
It was
and I was like, I don't have time for this right now.
And
I stopped playing it.
Am I the only one that bought Watch Dogs instead of Assassin's Creed at launch?
Yep.
Sucker. It wasn't a good experience.
I hope it goes back to its roots, because Assassin's Creed used to be an assassination game. Mm-hmm. Believe it or not. It wasn't Vikings raiding towns and stuff. I think the game, it's fallen off since Desmond. You're right. I was going to say the same thing before you even mentioned it. It's like after they killed off Desmond, and the modern storyline just went away.
It's been
sorry,
15 years,
people.
so.
Catch up 12 years ago.
From the leaks this week, it is going back to it's going back to its roots, the assassin.
Yeah.
And
What were you saying, Mikey?
they're paring it down. It's a smaller map.
The series always felt like it was building to something, and then they just kind of killed off the whole Minerva angle, and I didn't even understand what was going on with that. And I was really invested. I had played and beaten every single one, and Black Flag was an absolute blast. And then nothing. I remember playing Assassin's Creed 3, the one where they kind of switch it up, and you play as the Templar up front.
Oh, is that that Rogue?
No, it's the one in Revolutionary America.
Oh,
yeah,
where you play as a Native American.
Is this what it's like when I'm talking about Final Fantasies to you guys? I'm so lost.
And I played through that, and I beat that one too. And I'm like, wow, this is kind of getting away from it. The whole formula, because you're running through trees and stuff. There's no giant buildings in America at the turn of the century. It was really weird. But it was a good try. And then they just, I think, what was the one with the French Revolution? Or Unity kind of just fell off because they had huge performance issues. It got away from them. They're returning to form, I hope. They tried some experiments. I thought Valhalla was otherwise good. I know people liked the Ragnarok DLC, didn't play it. I know people liked Odyssey, and they liked the one in between in the desert. I don't remember what that one was called because there's too many. Origins. I thought it was all right too. It's just go back to being an assassination game, Altair, stuff like that. Like let's kill some people.
Yeah, I think they have like a nice fan base now to where they could kind of do both. Where if you like sort of like how Zelda has top down and 3D, sort of coexisting, they could easily do like classic Assassin's Creed now to more modern, because I think people do like it. If you go back to the classic way, and the people who have only played from Origins onward might be like, what is this? So it's kind of hard to not turn off the current fan base.
True. You do have a point, but I remember logging into Valhalla like a year later, and there was an event going on. I'm like, is this a live service game? What am I playing? I had to unlock Yule tides or logs and stuff, and I'm like, what?
Yeah,
it was different. Then there was an Easter one. Like, did Vikings even celebrate Easter?
Yeah, right.
It was some fun stuff though. I mean, I dog on it, but it got away from what it used to be, and it's not what I kind of signed up for, but it was decent still.
So like an Easter egg hunt?
It wasn't Redfall.
Tell me there were Vikings looking for Easter eggs. I just want to. Let's see. We should talk about this because I know Mikey just wrapped this up, and it's one of my favorite games of the last few years, Darkest Dungeon. We've known about a sequel for a while now. It's already out, I believe, on PC. We got confirmation that it will be coming to consoles, and it doesn't sound like they're going to be excluding anyone. They just say that they have a lot of players on console, and they want to make a sequel available to all of those players. And they did say all. It was in a kind of vague Twitter response to question about the game. So I have a theory that this is a Game Pass title still. They recently brought the original back to Game Pass, and I think they might be trying to table set a little bit, but maybe not. And if they ask us to buy it and it's $20, I think it's $25 I'd spend. I don't know what the price is on Steam. I can look that up real quick. While
it's not $20. I'm pretty sure it's actually 40.
Is it 40? Well,
it's 40.
Yeah, they know.
I was gonna say, well, let's
they have a dedicated base. Yes, go ahead.
This is a $70 game you would probably pay for.
Okay.
I would think so, because you said you play it a lot and everything. I think you even said it was one of your most played games.
Sure.
With, Terraria and
stuff
like that.
Such a disservice. Oh man, yes, Terraria. It's good. So I think that's a fair value indicator to me. Is amount of gameplay. Dungeon. Yeah, amount of time that you get out of it. Now I'm not talking about a super simple game. I still want some depth and some production value and that kind of stuff, but. I think that those games, if Terraria was sold with the updates, with the content over the years, it easily would have been $70. So maybe I'm taking a loophole on that one, because people would have paid $5 for this new expansion, $10 for this. Darkest Dungeon for $70. I'm waiting for a sale. I am. Darkest Dungeon 2.
Really?
Just based on the previous game. and you know, I would feel good at 50. Not good, but I think that would probably be my max on it. So I guess I have a limit.
Don't raise the Man, you are a problem,
Mike. They don't listen to our podcast. We're safe.
Next, you're going to tell Microsoft that, oh yeah, you should sell Minecraft for $70. Look at all the content in that.
That's a great point. Just kidding. Gamers hate them.
Moko's going to come in. You know what? Redfall should have been 80. I enjoyed it.
Whoa! I played Redfall because it was on Game. I wouldn't. Currently I'm a Game Pass exclusive person at the moment. I haven't bought a game for a while. So maybe that's
unless it's a Lego title.
Unless it's a Lego.
Sorry.
That was a gift.
He is our authority. Like,
sure.
you know, Grim is kind of our fighting game authority, and Anthony is our Lego game authority for sure. So
you're painting me with the wrong brush here. That's not. I'm being tired.
Do you want me to look at your profile right now to see what you're playing?
No, I don't. No one.
Okay. You're gonna be bunny parking 2, 3, and 4.
Like you haven't completed that.
I'm not playing them anymore.
Oh!
I got so tired of those. I really did.
Jay, go ahead.
I don't even know what I was going to say anymore.
I just wanted to say, like, Jay mentioned that, like, Darkest Dungeon 1 is on the Game Pass, or, like, table setting for Darkest Dungeon 2. That kind of gives me flashbacks to the Plague Tale. 'Cause I remember Requiem, when that came out, we lost Innocence, like, pretty much a week before. So sometimes it's not guaranteed with Game Pass.
Sometimes it's the opposite. Yeah.
They tend to do it with all their titles. I know they had, any game that has a sequel that's coming out, and if they're going to bring it to Game Pass, they pull the previous one off, so people go play that sequel, like NBA 2K. That went to Game Pass, and they pulled the previous one out like the day before.
Yeah,
so
the sports releases are a little different. We can do a little parallel over to Sony's side of things right now, and I believe that they've pulled Spider-Man from the PlayStation Plus Classic membership or whatever collection.
They did
right before Spider-Man 2 comes out, because they know that people are going to play Spider-Man 2 and they're going to want to play that game, and they're going to be like, oh man, now I got to buy it, and they will. So companies, they just want our money.
They pulled their own game though.
Yeah.
Isn't that
their
dirty?
own first party off?
And people gave Microsoft crap for Quantum Break when they couldn't get the licensing, but then they brought it back.
Yeah, no, I mean,
where was the outrage for Sony?
There's definitely some outrage, I think, over on that side of things. I haven't really, I don't dive over there too often to follow the news like I do for Xbox, but it's fair to say there was some backlash, but it is definitely kind of an ugly look.
And if I remember correctly, if you bought the $10 PS5 upgrade because you could get it on their platform, you lose access still.
I do believe
I
read
you
that.
Bought the $10 upgrade for nothing now because you can't even
play
the game.
Back? Do you get your $10 back?
Nope.
Oh no, that's not how it works. And I think
that's not how it works. With
to
Sony.
be kind of fair, I think Game Pass titles are the same way. You obviously, if you buy the expansion content and leaves Game Pass, then
that's different for third party. Imagine if people who bought the premium edition for Forza Horizon 5 and they pulled Forza Horizon from Game Pass.
Fair point, man. Totally fair. It's different.
Yeah. Oh man, that could come with licensing, because I know they've pulled Motorsport 7, but I don't think that was ever on Game Pass either. So that's different. Man, we'll find out.
Yeah, it's like I said, it's not a good look for them over there right now. Sony has been making a lot of weird moves like that, and this is kind of why some people are saying, hey, maybe they need some stiffer competition. But boy, is that a big narrative.
They pulled all their first-party classics as well.
Even with Xbox, even if they pull something or discontinue or disappears from the store, if you've purchased it in the past, you still have access to it.
That's correct.
Yes,
it's not available. So that surely should be the case with the $10 upgrade.
If it's installed, so once you uninstall it, you can't get it back. I think they pull all of it.
I'm not versed enough. See, I've seen people go kind of both ways on this, and having, if you have previously downloaded it, if you have the license, I don't have a good answer for you. We're not really Sony people up here for the most part, but
I think they only pulled. Yeah, I think you can always download it if you have the license.
I think some people, they were sharing lists. They're like, hey, get these 10 games now because they're about to be gone. So I think it was kind of like you get the license kind of thing, kind of like Games of Gold. Would that be fair? That kind of license where you download it and you own it as long as Gold is active. So, all right, I am going to close out the news page. So this is usually the part of the show where we ask anybody if there's anything else that they saw out there in the Twitter sphere or anywhere else that they want to kind of add it. Yeah, drop it in.
Yesterday, Halo Infinite announced Season 4 beginning on 20th of June, which has got Infection Mode, which is a new game type, and it's bringing in a career progression system. Similar to
Infection
Halo.
is a new game type?
Well, to Halo.
For Halo Infinite.
It didn't release until now?
No, so I was gonna go around the horn here and ask everybody when's the oh my god, Mikey's gone.
I play Infinite a lot. I played it this week.
I was gonna ask when's the last time you played Halo Infinite, and I think if I wasn't playing Overwatch I might probably still dabble in Halo. I just haven't.
Yeah. So I played it about 2 or 3 weeks ago.
Okay. There's a seasonal event on right now, just finished. It's great. I think it's great.
No, definitely. I bet you it is great.
I've still not finished the single player. I'm stuck on a part of the single player. I'm just really stuck. I can't get past it, and I keep loading it up and trying to get through it, and it beats me. I've had to turn it off in a particular part. But yeah, this is good. This is good news. Infection will be good, but this career progression system is a big thing that's being touted. I know, Mikey.
It's been 551 days since Halo Infinite launched, and they hadn't had Infection in the game until now.
Hey, just by generation's end, this is going to be a great game.
To be fair, they did have to pretty much relaunch their whole entire MP side because of the bad design choices. So it took them about a year and a half to get back on track.
Yeah,
I would say probably like 2 years. Yeah, about a year and a half to get back on track with what they wanted to do with MP. So it kind of makes sense it's coming this late in the game.
But like Infection, is it really that hard of a game mode?
I don't think it's
not like there's new weapons.
Yeah.
You just one guy turns into a zombie and gets a sword.
Is it just a case of they're drip feeding this stuff in? Like it's not difficult, or it's not. Is it just that they're trying to keep the pace going by, holding it back?
Yeah, it's their live service.
That's what it seems. But also, what happened? Sorry, Evan.
I'm saying the pace is really slow. I think it's hurting them at this point because it's like, we're over a year and they added a mode that I saw most people make in like 2 seconds by switching things in the menu. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's like it's not like this was a very complicated thing. It's not even like a new idea.
It's really hard for me to make time to get back into Halo. Now Overwatch keeps me because that's something I constantly dabble in because they have some new content every now and then and that kind of thing. But I think for shooters, like you have to keep the content flowing. You have to keep people playing because if you take a break from one, your skills get a little rusty in that particular game, and it's an investment to switch over and back into something like that. So if I haven't played Halo in 6 months, it makes it a lot less appealing for me to pick up my controller and play that as opposed to something I've been playing more recently or a different type of game. Yeah. Like your window is very small and you got to really pry it open to keep people invested, and I think a lot of people feel like Halo hasn't done a great job of that, even though the bones are good, as we've always said.
I can't understand, and you always talk about Overwatch, and I know the mechanics of that. Mike, you always talks about Call of Duty, and
yeah, everybody's kind of got a flavor.
But the Halo stands alongside these games, right now, and it just blows my mind that they're so far behind.
Well, I will say I've tried to get my daughter, who's big in Overwatch as well, and she's in the about 20 years old, kind of age range, the college range and stuff. And we always call it kind of Halo the boomer shooter. It's really hard to get them to want to play Halo when they can play Overwatch, when they can play Call of Duty, when they can play Fortnite and all these other shooters out there. So there's a little bit to be said that Halo maybe hasn't really lost its luster. It's just built for an older audience. Now, there's a lot of older gamers out there. We're probably the prime market because we have the money, even though we don't have the time. But, so it's still worth investing in. But it's kind of hard to tag like the newer generations to get them on board, too.
Here's the problem. What do you think comes out first? Modern Warfare 2, Season 4. Keep in mind, Season 4 is not out. Or Halo Infinite Season 4?
Well, Season 4 is coming out on the 20th of June for Halo.
Modern Warfare Season 4 comes out June 14th.
Okay.
Yeah, and Modern Warfare is not even like a year old, right? Like it's
Right.
turning a year old. So yeah, that's really
So
bad.
they're churning
That's
content.
the problem.
Something that Blizzard's very good about
saying.
too.
Yeah, that's what I was saying is you got to think because of the issues that they had with multiplayer and the horrible design choices they made, pretty much their whole post-content timeline was thrown out the window. Now they had to level set.
Yeah,
they had to
season one
level
was like
set.
a year, wasn't it? Yeah.
About 6 months, 7 months, I think, 8 months, somewhere around there. They had to level set now and restart basically their whole MP launch. And with that, they had to now time that they could have spent on getting this content out faster. They're having to level set and restart over and now redesign how MP works, like with the match XP, things like that. On top of trying to push content out at a reasonable pace. You can't do both. It's either you're going to take 2 steps, 1 step forward, 2 steps back, or you stop and just crawl forward slowly but surely to get this stuff out.
I don't know when the last time you played, Kev, was. I used to get into
it was about 2 or 3 weeks ago.
20, 30 seconds, but even with this new event now, it's taking 2, 3 minutes, 4 minutes. The other day I sat waiting in matchmaking for so long I just turned it off.
I mean, you got to think.
The population is dropping. It has to be dropping the player count.
You got to think though. Look at the release we just had in the last 2 weeks. We had Tears of the Kingdom. We had Jedi Survivor. We had Redfall. We had all these other games that are coming out that are just overshadowing it, and rightfully so. I mean, you have new Overwatch 2 content coming out, Modern Warfare 2. You have these games that are constantly evolving always, and these new big releases. It's fair to say that people aren't going to go back to a year and a half old game, almost 2-year-old game now, just to play. I mean, there's new stuff to play.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So I won't be
game with like a 4-month roadmap in it. Like
I will be positive here for a moment. It's good that they're still doing it. Because had you asked me if Infection's in Halo, I would have said yes. And there's other stuff coming, like they're adding, I guess, some pretty dynamic water effects. I looked into it, a whole Forerunner palette and a career progression system. So they're adding the things that need to be there. Only so many times can I say they should have been there at launch before people do have to accept it. It's just good for them for doing it. Don't do it again, though. Please don't. Please don't do this again with Halo Infinite 2.
It's harder to drag people back. It's always harder to drag people back, though, isn't it? Rather than to keep them,
good buzz, good buzz can turn a game around. We've seen it with No Man's Sky and Cyberpunk. There's examples of games turning the tide and changing the narrative of a rough, rocky release. But I don't think Halo has reached that point yet. But if they continue to grind at it, I think kind of what Mikey is saying, and keep putting in the slow, steady work on it, that eventually there might be a product here that's standing that people are going to come to. They're going to throw it in their rotation. They're going to revisit sometime. I don't know what's going to be a catalyst to get people really to fire it up, to download it if they've uninstalled it, but there's potential for it there. And if nothing else, you at least leave it in a good state by the time you're done with it, because this is still a marquee franchise, if not the top Xbox franchise. And you can't leave a big old dog turd out there for everybody to go back and look at, eventually we want the history to look back at it, and whatever copy is playable, be able to be like, hey, that game was not that bad, even though I had a rough start. So,
I mean, to be fair, Halo was a success on launch. I mean, it had a lot. I mean, it's 88 on Metacritic. It had millions of people playing it on launch. It just wasn't until you saw that post-content launch and where the design choices really started to mess with the game that people saw those glaring issues where they're like, where's the longevity? Where am I going to get these new content stuff? And that's where they had to start level setting, and their whole post content got thrown out the window. But on launch, Halo was actually a success if you look at the numbers.
Agreed.
Yeah. People, I mean, it was good to start, and like many games, not have an end game is a death sentence. So that's why it's good to hear Diablo focusing on it. My cat's going a little crazy in the background here, so just give me a moment. I'm gonna rescue her.
I do have a segue.
Okay, does it involve cats?
I have a segue for it.
This could have been the stray segue.
Well, I'll just listen in. I'm gonna grab her.
But no. Well, speaking of games that are supposed to set the, I guess, expectation from Xbox, being Halo is Starfield, Destin kind of came out with a really, really bad take on the future of, how this is a last redemption and Xbox is doomed, and we're not going to count triple or double A titles, but look at all of Sony's triple A titles. It was a very, very bad narrative to set that completely marginalized what Xbox has already done. I mean, if you look on Metacritic with Xbox and everything like that, they have 80s and 90s across the board for things like Psychonauts 2, Flight Simulator, Pentiment. They got a lot of different games that they've released that all of a sudden, just because of Redfall, this whole Xbox Doom wave has taken over.
It's just clickbait, right, though, because Colt Eastwood posted the same thing yesterday.
So yes and no. I mean, well, it is clickbait, but now this is a narrative where people are starting to get that Google SEO, where if you don't have Xbox and Doom in your title, you're not going to see a lot of people heading your way.
This is what
we had Xbox and Doom in our title first.
Yeah.
We did.
We did.
We did. So I mean, and this is where I want to really make a big shout out and applaud Xbox Era. They recently came out with a video about like 6-7 hours ago from John Clark, who's the editor-in-chief over there, who is calling out this total hypocrisy from the content creators, Twitter personalities, and even the media about how they skew and how they look at Xbox. I mean, he even had one of the best opening lines ever. It doesn't matter how Starfield is, it doesn't matter how good Starfield is. It won't change the narrative on how people perceive Xbox in the media space. And if you guys haven't seen it, please go watch it. Go look at it. It brings up a lot of really great points, especially with this whole recent Xbox Doom thing. And I do want to just say it hits a lot of notes perfectly that makes you think, huh, maybe that is kind of true if you really look at it, how they review games. PlayStation 5 had, I think, 120 something reviews for Jedi Survivor compared to Xbox version that had 13. You see how media portrays and plays these games and how they change different narratives. Oh, Deathloop and Ghostwire Tokyo, those aren't Xbox games. That they're too good. They're not Xbox games. Then you have Redfall, where it's like, oh, well, no, that's an Xbox game. But they both all started around development before even Xbox acquired them. So the narrative and how they piece stuff together, just go watch it. I really just want to bring that up and make a big shout out to them for making such a quality video.
So just a few, we talked about it before the show where I stand. I'm not the doom and gloom guy. I'm kind of in between. Starfield by itself won't change the narrative of Xbox, but it'll be the first step that they can take forward. If Starfield comes out and it slaps, it'll be Xbox taking it forward, saying, see, we can do this. And other people will be like, well, there's hope for the future of their games. They still have to prove it some more, but there's hope. If Starfield fails, it just continues this trend of their AAA games that have launched very poorly recently. The knock on Redfall versus Deathloop is that they launched over a year apart. That extra year of dev time, it's like Xbox has their hands a little bit more into the project when we find out they didn't, when they probably should have. And then that goes against them. Deathloop came out, they just bought them, and then a year later Deathloop came out, and then 2 years later Redfall comes out. So Redfall's a little bit more on them this time. But I think that if Starfield fails to meet expectations, they've come out and they've stated how heavily they're working with their team. They've come out and said this multiple times how much they're working on Starfield. So this is an Xbox title at this point. And if it fails, 100%. It's one of those things where it's like, well, can you actually release a AAA game? Because you haven't done that in a while. At least it feels like, outside of Forza, which is a AAA game, but you haven't been hitting with Halo. Halo was a mess. Redfall came out. We had the drought of 2022. Xbox does go into it. It's not Doom, but it gets harder to repair that reputation when you keep tarnishing it. You know, you only get so many chances before people want a coach fired of a sports team. It's tough to keep seeing delays, keep seeing promises like, oh, this year's E3 is going to be so big, and then it's kind of like, well, that was good, but we need something big. We need a God of War. We need a Last of Us. We need a Final Fantasy VII. And that's what Starfield is to people. There's a lot riding on that game. And at this point, justifiably so, it needs to slap. It needs to come out and turn heads and be one of the biggest games this year has ever seen.
The best they can get is an 8.5, I think. And I think because I actually believe in kind of a little bit of an anti-Xbox narrative because of the perceived multi-platform nature of the game before it was taken away. I think some people are going to be a little jaded about that. I think some people don't like Bethesda games. I don't. Is anybody expecting more than just a Bethesda game here? Because I think people are, and I think I've talked about this before, but this is just going to be a Bethesda game. It's going to be in space, and it's going to be a little more fleshed out, but it's going to be on the scale of Fallout 4 in some ways. You know, Fallout, it's going to be a lot larger than Fallout 4, but as far as like the gameplay and the design and the mechanics that we're going to see, we shouldn't expect anything too different from that. Maybe a little refined, but it goes back to Skyrim. It goes back to Morrowind. These are all, everybody knows what we're going to get, and you know what? There's going to be people that aren't going to be real happy about it. So I think the deck's already stacked against it for the people that are expecting this is going to be a 10-10 game. It's not, because there's going to be a lot of small little things that people can pick at, and they definitely will. And that's just kind of the nature of a huge open world Western role-playing game like this. So
that's the thing, though.
By 2016, I was just going to say Skyrim sold 30 million copies. So when you say just another Bethesda game, that has a lot riding on it.
That's fair. But what about Fallout 4? Now, Fallout 4, I consider a fantastic game. I loved it, but people really picked it apart because they're like, oh, well, the narrative was limited. You could only have 3 endings. It wasn't a true role-playing game, true to the nature of Fallout. And there was some other complaints as well, but it seemed like it got raked over the coals pretty good for what I would consider just normal Bethesda stuff.
I think it's just because Fallout 4 followed like New Vegas, which had so many branching paths. Like it was kind of, if it followed 3, I think people would have been fine, but it followed New Vegas, and that was unfortunate.
Yeah, you know? That's true.
Fallout 4 sold over 20 million.
Oh, I'm not saying they're failures at all, at any stretch of the imagination. I just think maybe people were setting their goals on this 10-10, the Zelda score, which, if we want to talk about bias, there's a little bit of a Nintendo bias, and I'm fine with it, but you gotta, you know, they get a few bonus points for being Nintendo games and that kind of stuff. But in the end, I just hope that people aren't getting their expectations up to this being some kind of Xbox savior. So it's almost like the opposite of the Doom scenario. No, it's where people think it's gonna like some Excalibur sword that we're gonna pull out, and also Xbox is back, baby. And maybe it will to an extent, but it seems like a lot to be putting in one game.
This is what Phil Spencer has been saying, though, and this is even when he did his kind of funny interview. Is I understand Mikey's point where people want this AAA. That's not what Xbox is going for, and hasn't for a while now. They're not they just want to make great games. And if you look at it, they've actually been very successful with Pentiment, all these other games, Hi-Fi Rush, Grounded, Microsoft Flight Simulator, AOE. They have these amazing titles that are releasing at 80s and 90s. And he even said himself, we're not going to be a better green guy because we're going to try and be a better blue guy. It doesn't work like that. So I think these people, I think the narrative of they need a AAA is ridiculous. It's not the expectation that Xbox has set, but people are choosing to ignore that because they want a God of War. They want Last of Us. They want, and it's just, I don't know.
So does Phil Spencer. He's come out and said he wants games like that too.
But he wants them, but he doesn't want I don't think they want the brand to be known for that. They actually have a very amazing catalog of games that are for everybody. Like, think of a game on Xbox that you won't be able to have on PlayStation right now. I can think of tons that they really do set genres for everybody. It's more of a open, I want everybody to play these kinds of games versus we're only going to do these huge single player blockbusters.
They definitely...
So the FanFest event, which has been announced, I know so I'm pointing like people can see. Like Kev and Mikey are going to that. Have you seen this supposed leaked list of?
Oh God, this is not even worth discussing.
Just
go ahead.
Get into that.
Wait, go ahead, Mikey, and I'll take it.
1 second, just before we get into that, because we bring up the fact that a lot is riding on Starfield and it shouldn't be. I think that's Xbox's fault. They're the ones that put all this pressure on Starfield. Well, because Starfield's the only other game they've announced so far that's coming out this year. It'll be the second AAA that's come out in 2 years, and maybe Hellblade might be coming out. But they're the ones that have put all this pressure on it. Well, it was their standout last year. They're going to do a 30-minute segment on it after their event this year because they know it's their moniker title. So they're the ones that's put that pressure on it.
Well, we were just talking about Halo, and I think that's the reason there's a lot of pressure on Starfield, because had Halo landed, had it been a fantastic 9 out of 10 game, I don't think the expectations or the demand or the impatience would be at the level that it is for Starfield to kind of fill the void that maybe Halo left a little bit. It does. I think when we think back to the 360 era, but it was. They put go ahead.
It was an 8.8 game. I was gonna say Halo was an 8.8 game.
No, I know, but come on, it's aged a little and it may be a little poorly, maybe. But I was just gonna get back to I think the 360 era, when Gears was dropping, when Halo meant something, when Forza was new, it felt like that was the last time that Xbox was consistently delivering these AAA first party experiences, and it's been 2.5 generations now of maybe chasing that. Now, I love Xbox. I'm very happy over here. It's where I primarily game and probably always will. It's just I think I haven't felt that. Do you guys feel what I'm feeling when I say that? Like, it hasn't been the same since then.
Yeah, I feel like it lost its... Oh, go ahead.
No, you go ahead.
I was just gonna say, it feels like it lost its identity a little bit. You know what I mean? Like, they still try and like bring it back, but it just feels a little like aimless sometimes. And I think the fact that it is now going into a 2.5 generation, I haven't seen many like console makers stay that long. Like when Sega called it on Dreamcast, that was like 2 failed generations, they were done. So I think that's why we're seeing this like Doom type stuff. I mean, I've seen YouTubers that never talked about Xbox, now they just come in like, what's going on with Xbox? I'm like, weird that you're talking about now. So,
and they really ignore the financials. The Xbox is very successful, and that's the number one counter to it being a Doom. If you look at financials and revenue, it's doing very well. Now, like we've talked about it, they spent $69 billion on Activision. That certainly hurts the bottom line when you're talking about net profit, but that also is an indication that they see it as a big part of their future. So was there anything else that we wanted to get to? I felt like somebody was leading into something, and we
no.
I think we're going to call it. Oh, go ahead, Mikey.
We're call it. I was just saying about that list. I don't even know if it's genuine, but there were some games on that leaked list for the.
Oh, that's what it was. Yes.
Which would tick boxes for when you're saying.
Yeah. Can we talk about us?
I don't want to ruin it though for anybody who's going, but it might not be true anyway.
Yeah, Slick Song, I think was on there, right? Hollow Knight, Slick Song.
New Vegas 2's on there.
Yeah, no, it was a big typo. There was a bunch of typos in it. It was so bad, and it had a big in red in a giant font was a big confidential thing, just like strapped across the thing, and I'm just like, what is this baloney?
Yeah. Okay. Well, maybe it's it's not true then.
Well, there's
we could save that for an E3 show.
Yeah, I was saying let's wrap this up for next week because we'll have plenty of time. I think Mikey does have to go right now.
Yeah, no, we're good. I just want to say
in Minneapolis, and I have totally squandered my time here.
Let me just add.
Beat up. So
yep. The reason I dismissed that, Moko, is there's an identical one for the PlayStation show, exact same monitor with the exact same font, and it's all PlayStation games. So we can probably dismiss that one. If we do have to wrap it up, though, I'm going to start playing the closing music. We're going to be going out with the Tropical soundtrack this week, and while I do that, I'll bring it in low. You guys can kind of say your plans for the week real quick, and we'll get Mikey out of here.
Overwatch 2.
Overwatch 2, that's good plans.
And Dredge.
I'm going to check out this Dredge, I'm going to check this game out.
I'm going to finish Zelda. 40 shrines and then it's over. And that's all I got left. I got to find them.
A madman, an absolute madman. I'm glad you liked it so much. Mikey's already halfway out the door. He's got a foot gone.
Daisy and the Quarry.
All right, I'm glad that you're still in the DayZ. I can't wait to hear your impressions on the Quarry. I'll be Final Fantasy 3, 2 down, 3 to go. And also Overwatch, and patiently waiting for beta, or not beta, actual release of Diablo 4. That's all I can think about. I'm obsessed. I think that's it. Everybody good?
Yep.
All right. I think that's great. Sorry, guys.
I'm going out like I came in.
I just want to tell everybody I'm why we're ending it so quickly. I have to go.
We should always get out like this. 2 hours, 20 minutes.
My girlfriend wants me to build a bunch of stuff, so I'm with you. I have to go as well. So.
Our families are after us.
It's partly my fault.
See you all next week.
See you next week.
Bye.
Let's do it.
Qué linda se ven las colinas de mi Borinquen. Qué linda se ven las colinas en el amanecer. Luquillo, playa preciosa en mi Borinquen. La guancha perla hermosa en el amanecer. Una de la bomba y plena de la danza y el seis chorreao. Son ritmos que para el mundo Puerto Rico le ha brindado. Cuna de la bomba y plena de la danza y el seis chorreao. Son ritmos que para el mundo Puerto Rico le ha brindado. Se ven las colinas de mi Borinquen. Qué linda se ven las colinas en el amanecer. Luquillo, playa preciosa en mi Borinquen. La guancha perla hermosa en el amanecer. Una de la bomba y plena de la danza y el seis chorreao. Son ritmos que para el mundo Puerto Rico le ha brindado. Una de la bomba y plena de la danza y el seis chorreao. Son ritmos que para el mundo Puerto Rico le ha brindado. eso quiero volver a las playas de Borinquen, por eso regresaré a sus palmares otra vez, por eso quiero volver a las playas de Borinquen, por eso regresaré a sus palmares otra vez. Qué linda es la parguera y las colinas del monte, vámonos para la playa al ver el lindo horizonte. Por eso quiero volver a las playas de Borinquen, por eso regresaré a sus palmares otra vez. Por eso quiero volver a las playas de Borinquen, por eso regresaré a sus palmares otra vez. El faro de Ponce alumbra a los veleros del mar. Qué hermosa y linda es mi tierra, como ella no hay igual. Por eso quiero volver a las playas de Borinquen, por eso regresaré a sus palmares otra vez. Por eso quiero volver a las playas de Borinquen, por eso Puerto Rico, allí me pongo a gozar.
Borinquen, tierra tan bella, Borinquen, isla preciosa, con sus playas hermosas, siempre bendecida es ella.
Puerto Rico es mi cuna tropical. En Puerto Rico, allí me pongo a gozar. Puerto Rico es mi cuna tropical. En Puerto Rico, allí me pongo a gozar.
Vistas que el mundo adora, paisajes como en Edén. Visita y tú puedes ver a nuestra isla encantadora.
Puerto Rico es mi cuna tropical. En Puerto Rico, allí me pongo a gozar. Puerto Rico es mi cuna tropical. En Puerto Rico, allí me pongo a gozar.
Quisiera yo saludar a los boricuas ausentes que siempre están en mi mente. Les brindo yo mi cantaralala.
Puerto Rico es mi cuna tropical. En Puerto Rico, allí me pongo a gozar. Puerto Rico es mi cuna tropical. En Puerto Rico, allí me pongo a gozar.
Bonito barítono Brian.